hablar de lo que pensamos, sentémonos a hablar de lo que queremos, sentémonos a hablar de una transformación, sentémonos a hablar para buscar solución. Sentémonos a hablar del territorio, sentémonos a hablar con la verdad, sentémonos a hablar con igualdad, para que juntos construyamos la paz. Sentémonos a hablar.
Sentémonos a hablar con el mismo objetivo y sacar adelante este pueblo que tanto ha sufrido. Ya no más violencia entre nosotros. Volvamos al diálogo y la alegría a todos estos rostros que han oprimido, que los han callado y de su territorio los han sacado. Hoy quieren ser escuchados en este diálogo social territorial, que trabajemos por la paz que tanto anhelamos como hermanos, donde también se aborden temas como la cultura, lo social, lo económico, los derechos humanos, la dignidad, y que sea algo real, para seguir generando confianza y esperanza en nuestra comunidad. Sentémonos a hablar, sin importar el estrato o la clase social, el color de piel o religión, o la condición. Busquemos las formas de la reconciliación para vivir en nuestro territorio mejor. Volvamos al diálogo que invita a la reflexión.
Volvamos al diálogo, por ti, por mí, por Buenaventura y Colombia, nuestro país. Volvamos al diálogo,
donde convergan nuestros hermanos sin miedo a morir. Oh sí,
volvamos al diálogo, donde las armas quedan atrás para construir la paz. Volvamos al diálogo.
Es la hora, el momento. Quizás para mañana no tengamos tiempo.
Somos un pueblo inteligente, con saberes y con fuerza contundente. Buenaventura y el Pacífico presente. No nos sentamos a esperar, dialogamos al caminar, pues nuestra meta es avanzar y avanzar, buscando sanar las heridas del alma y el corazón. A través del diálogo, pues es la mejor sanación y transformación que genera la confianza y nace el perdón. En medio del dolor, buscando la paz y entre hermanos el amor.
Ya, la paz es ya, el diálogo la solución. Sin armas, sin pasión, sin control ni manipulación, dando la buena aventura, territorio pacífico que siempre ha sido ejemplo de lucha social, tierra pluénica y cultural. No queremos más guerras que nacen de la opulencia y discriminación. Solo buscamos el diálogo como solución, con justicia y respeto, dignificación, con integración y perdón. No queremos que vengan de afuera con su imposición. Queremos de aquí, sí, que le aporten al cambio y a la reconciliación.
Volvamos al diálogo.
Universidad de Sheffield, Universidad Javeriana y CINEP.
Volvamos al diálogo.
Con Valentina, JABI y Mr. Jackson, el cirujano.
Volvamos al diálogo.
Volvamos al diálogo, todos unidos, cogidos de las manos.
Volvamos al diálogo.
Casa Social, Cultural y Memoria. Raza. Rasta fabre bato ascara bomba de bonfire. Esto es lo que hay. Volvamos al diálogo.
que pensamos. Sentémonos a hablar de lo que queremos. Sentémonos a hablar de una transformación. Sentémonos a hablar para buscar solución.
Buenos días a todos.
Sentémonos a hablar del territorio.
Buenas tardes,
Sentémonos a
¿cómo
hablar
estás?
con
Hola,
la
buenas tardes,
verdad.
¿cómo estás? ¿Cómo están
Sentémonos a
todos?
hablar con
Bien, gracias a
igualdad.
Dios.
Para
Hola.
Hola.
Buenos días a todos y a todas. Muchas gracias por estar hoy con nosotros en esta conversación sobre mujer rural en Vista Hermosa. Nosotros estamos acá desde Vista Hermosa con muchos de los que nos acompañan también en línea. Tenemos gente en Bogotá que está con nosotros y en otros países. Y entonces vamos a ya dar inicio con unos saludos iniciales. Lamentamos la demora en el inicio de la transmisión, tuvimos algunos problemas técnicos, pero ya estamos acá todos juntos y muchas gracias.
Hola, muy buenos tardes, tengan todos y todas. Yo soy Manuel Salamanca y bueno, estoy muy contento de haber vuelto a esta cosa después de tanto tiempo de no haberlo conseguido. Las cosas no es tan fácil, no ha sido fácil pues poder hacer nuestro evento, pero sabemos que las personas que no están aquí están pues aquí y hemos conseguido traer a algunas de las mujeres que queremos participar en este momento de esta primer evento de cierre, que será más de uno, del proyecto de, sobre diálogos probables aquí en Vista Hermosa, el proyecto que hemos desarrollado con la ayuda de Colciencias, el CINEP y por supuesto nuestra asociación con la Universidad de Sheffield y como la Universidad Javeriana. Esto para nosotros y nosotras significa un momento muy importante porque convencidos y convencidas como estamos de la necesidad del diálogo, creemos que hemos logrado sentar unas bases de un diálogo que por supuesto va a seguir, hemos logrado sentar las bases, pienso yo, técnicas de conversas que van a ser cada vez más y más, ¿no? Y de esa manera pues queremos aproximarnos hacia el final de esto y utilizar todo lo que podamos para dejar no solo, digamos, la impronta del proyecto, sino que el proyecto tenga una proyección, una proyección importante.
but also an important contribution. This way, we're going to try, for me, as you see, it's also something new to be able to work this way. Thank you. It's very difficult to do it this way.
Pues vamos a intentar,
We are going to try to carry out this conversation of the rural women, of rural woman, and what it means, what this actually means in terms of dialogues, in terms of what we want to achieve. However, right now, I would like to give the floor to Jairo Aguilar, who is with us from there, so that on behalf of the program that has been the frame of all of this, the university program, we can give this context and precisely to get ahead with what we want to do with the in this small and useful conversation that we want to carry out.
Sería este el momento para que
This will be the time for that to happen. You're hearing a lot of things that are happening around us, and as well as you, we're learning to do events of this kind and in this methodology. So, Jairo, thank you very much.
Hola Jairo, no te escuchamos.
Hi, Jairo. We're not hearing you. We're not hearing. I don't know if you already started or not.
Paloma, yo no veo a Jairo en la lista. Ah, ya lo
Paloma,
tengo.
I'm not seeing Jairo. Oh, okay, now I see him.
Aló, aló.
Hi,
Se te escucha bien.
we can hear you fine.
Muchas gracias.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yo no sé qué pasaba, pero yo no
I don't know
lograba
what was going
los
on,
estar
but
viendo a ustedes, pero ustedes
I
no me
was
veían
seeing
y
you, but you were not
la
being able to
conexión,
hear me
esto de la
or see
tecnología me
me.
genera demasiado estrés.
Technology generates
Los,
sometimes
los saludo muy
stress.
rápido para que
I
puedan
want to greet you
presentarse
very
de manera
quickly so that we can
simultánea
start
y
with the
obviamente
event
primero
and
que todo
to
muchas
advance in the
gracias
event.
por las
First of all,
mujeres que nos
I
están
want to
acompañando.
acknowledge
Yo no las
the women that are
conozco,
joining us. I don't know them
solo a
all, but
Jimena ahí
I recognize Jimena
en el salón de la casa de
in
Vista.
the room
Muchas
of
gracias a
the
todos por
house
sacar el
there.
tiempo.
Thank you all for
Sabemos que
taking the
no es
time,
fácil.
and we know it is not
Solo
easy.
por el tema de la conexión ya nos
Just
vemos que
because of
quisiéramos saber tan
connection,
difícil que es estar
we
en
see how
territorio,
difficult it is to be in the
las
territory
dificultades que tienen
and
todas
of
las
the
mujeres en el
difficulties that all
territorio.
women in the
Esta
territory
mañana,
have, and
esta
all
mañana
people in
también
general.
estábamos también en una
This
formación de
morning, we
conexión
were
con
also in a
municipality,
training
fue
with
muy
the
complicada la conexión.
municipality council, and the
Ya
connection was
saludamos
very
a la
difficult.
alcaldía,
I
Cristina,
see women there from the
Jimena
ombudsman
ahí.
office,
Agradecerle también a
and
César
thank
por
you all for being here.
coordinar
And I want to thank
este evento,
Cesar for
a
all the
Luisa,
help
Luz
to
Adriana,
coordinate these events.
al profesor
Thanks, Luz
Mauricio
Adriana,
Vaquero,
Professor Mauricio
pues todos
Vaquero.
vendrán un momento
Later
más
on,
a
you will all
presentarse,
have
Claudia
some
también
opportunity to
vendrá,
introduce yourselves, and of course,
también
thanks
un
to
gusto
Claudia.
ver a Manuel y a todo el equipo de
And
la
it's also
Vista,
good to
muchas
see
gracias.
Manuel and all the
Dos
team in
minutos
Vista Hermosa.
simplemente para una pequeña
2 minutes
introducción.
to simply give a small
Todos ustedes
introduction.
saben, la
As
universidad
all of
lleva
you know,
algunos años
the
ya trabajando
university
en el
has been
territorio.
working in the territory for some years
Desde hace
already.
algunos años también existe un proyecto
From
como
some years
Proyecto,
ago,
Proyecto Javeriana de Paz
there
y
is a project that's
Reconciliación,
called
que tiene muchas
Javeriana Peace and
experiencias
Reconciliation,
de
which
todos
actually
los
seeks
grupos
to assist
sociales en
experiences from all social
Territorio,
groups
en
in the
Vista
territory,
Hermosa y en San José del
especially in Vista
Guaviare.
Hermosa and San Jose del
Nosotros hemos
Guaviare.
tratado de mantenernos en el
We
territorio
have
de
tried to
manera
keep
juiciosa,
ourselves
pedir
staying in the
consejos,
territory to gain some trust
acompañar en
and
ese
to build a
proceso, ir
process, and through
identificando
that process
cuáles
to
son las
identify
necesidades en las que la
what the
comunidad
needs in which the community
quisiera ser apoyada de
would
parte de
like
la
to be
universidad. En
supported
ese
by the
proceso
university on.
conocimos
In that process, we
representantes
met
de las
the
mujeres
representatives
luchadoras,
of
que es
the women's
Cristina
group in the
Espitia,
peace
y
process,
ella
which
forma
is
parte
Cristina
de otro
Espitia.
grupo que se
She
llama
is part of a
Valientes
group
Mujeres
called
Valientes de Vista
um,
Hermosa, y a través de
Ombudsman
ellos
Office
empezamos a
of
tener una
Brave Women in
conversación
Vista Hermosa.
de
And
ver
through her,
posibilidades
we started to
también
have a
de
conversation to see
acompañar
what
el trabajo que
possibilities
las
there
mujeres
were
estaban
of
haciendo en el
assisting the
territorio.
work that women were doing in the
En
territories.
paralelo a esa conversación con Cristina,
Parallel to that conversation with
de la universidad,
Christina from the
habían
university, there were
profesores que
different
estaban
professors
interesados
groups that were
en
interested
continuar el trabajo en Vista Hermosa
into
y en
continuing their work
conocer
in
grupos de
Vista
mujeres
Hermosa
con los
and
que
to
ellos
getting
podrían
to meet
empezar a
groups
implementar
of
esos
women
esquemas de trabajo
with
con
whom they
mujeres que
could
están en
start to
territorio.
implement the
Esa es
work
la
processes that they
participación
were
del
interested
instituto,
on.
por eso la
So that's why the
participación
participation of the institutes, the
en el
participation
Ministerio
of
Público Javeriano
legal
y por eso la
office from
participación
Javeriana,
de
and
Claudia
also the
y Paloma
participation of Claudia and
presentando el
Paloma
proyecto que
presenting
vamos
also
a
the
desarrollar.
project that
Lo que
is that they're
queremos
going
es
to talk about
conversar el
later
día de
on.
hoy, conocer un poco
What we
más
want to do
acerca de
is to
nuestro
talk
diálogo,
today
un
to
poco
talk
más
more about the
acerca de la
dialogues
alcaldía de mujeres
project,
y
to
que
talk about
tanto
more about
Manuel
the
como
Ombudsman Office
Claudia,
of
como el profesor
Women, and that
Mauricio,
Manuel, as well as
nuestros
Claudia, and as
profesores
well
del
as
entorno
Mauricio,
jurídico,
from their experience in
conozcan
the
nuestra
legal
experiencia y
office,
nuestras
they can tell us about that
expectativas
experience and
de
those
posibilidades que
expectations that they
tenemos en
have
el territorio
of
con las
work
mujeres de
possibilities
Vista
in the
Hermosa,
territory
sobre
with Vista
todo las
Hermosa
mujeres
women,
rurales de Vista
especially
Hermosa.
with rural
Listo.
women in Vista
Yo lo
Hermosa.
dejaría hasta acá. De
So
verdad,
I'll
muchas
leave it up
gracias
so
por
far like that.
por
Thank
el
you all
esfuerzo.
for
Espero que
participating. Thank you
la
for your efforts.
tecnología, la luz
We
y la
hope
conexión
technology,
y la comunicación nos
electricity, and
permitan
communication from
generar
now
más
on
estrés y
does not
podamos tener
generate any
una
more
conversación muy
stress,
interesante.
and that we can have a very interesting conversation.
Bueno, muchas gracias. Ya vamos a empezar como con
Okay,
nuestra
thank you. We're going to start with our conversation. We're
algunas.
here from Vista Hermosa, some of us from a cultural house.
Entonces les propongo si
So
les
I don't know.
parece
I'll
bien,
propose if it is okay for you, like
si me
that we can
acompañan a
introduce
presentar.
ourselves to know who are going
¿Puedo
to be
pasar
here.
el celular?
I'm going
Así
to
como el micrófono.
pass them a cell phone. It's going to help as a microphone so that everyone can hear us, the ones that are joining us online,
las familias están de viaje, etcétera. Entonces, pues nada.
because they might be because of COVID, because they're traveling, or because any kind of issues, they're
Buenas
connected online.
tardes.
Good afternoon.
Mi nombre es Lady Marcela
My name
Rodríguez.
is Lady Marcela Rodriguez.
Vengo de la vereda
I
Gualinda.
come from Agualinda settlement.
Una
I
organización
belong to an
de mujeres
organization of
víctimas del conflicto.
women's organization of women victims of the armed conflicts.
Muy buenas tardes. Mi
Good
nombre es
afternoon. My name is Patricia
Poblado.
Muñoz. I come from Poblado, from township.
Buenas tardes.
Good
Soy
afternoon.
Jimena Silva.
I
Soy
am
gerente
Jimena
de la
Silva. I'm the
cooperativa
manager
Victoria.
of
Soy
Victaria
Sacha
Cooperative.
y
We are
transformadora
producers of Sacha
de
Inchi,
aceite y
an
snacks
association, and
natural.
we convert it or transform it into oil and snacks. Sacha Inchi oil, like
Buenas
for
tardes.
omega
Mi
3.
nombre es
Good
Juliana
afternoon. My
Trujillo.
name is Juliana
En este punto yo soy
Trujillo, and at
asistente
this point, I'm
coordinadora
only an assistant. I do not represent any organizations.
Bien. Sí, y ahora vamos a dar la palabra a las
Okay,
personas.
now we're going to give the floor to the people that are connected.
Muy buenas tardes para todos y
Good
todas. Mi
afternoon
nombre
to
es
all of
Luz
you.
Adriana Rodas
My name
Guerra
is Luz
y
Adriana
tengo
Rodas
representación
Guerra. I
como
represent
coordinadora de la veeduría de
as
mujeres valientes
coordinator
del
of
distrito
Ombudsman Office
18
of Brave
y
Women in
también
Vista
soy
Hermosa, and
representación
I'm
nacional de la
also
Asociación de
representing
Mujeres Pacifistas
Association
Productoras,
of Peaceful
AMUPAD.
Producer
Muchas
Women,
gracias por
AMUPAT.
invitarnos.
Thank you for
Especialmente
inviting
a
us,
César, que siempre nos
Special
tiene
Cesar, who's always
presente para
there
participar en
taking us
todos
into account to
los eventos
participate
que
in
realiza en
these
pro de
events
la
that
defensa de los derechos de
they
las mujeres.
perform in the advocacy of women's rights.
Muy buenas tardes.
Good
Yo soy
afternoon.
Jennifer Rojas,
I am Jennifer Rojas.
subcoordinadora de la Veeduría de Mujeres
I am
Valientes del
one of the
distrito 18.
coordinators of the Ombudsman Office in Vista Hermosa.
Buenas tardes para
Good
todos y
afternoon
todas. Mi
for
nombre es
everyone.
Angie Paola Guerra,
My name is Angie Paula
secretaria
Guerra.
de
I'm the
Mujeres Valientes
secretary
del
of
distrito 18 Hermosa, representante de
Ombudsman
la unidad
Office Brave
suplementaria
Women in Vista
juvenil.
Hermosa, and I'm representative of the youth.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi
Hi, good
nombre es Ana
afternoon.
Cristina
My name is
Espitia.
Ana Cristina Espitia.
Soy consejera
I am a counselor
eh,
or advisor
en el sector mujeres
in the women's
y
sector,
representante legal de la
and I'm the legal
corporación Vista
representative
Hermosa
of
Diversa.
Vista Hermosa
Y
Diversa
soy
Corporation,
pasante en la
and
veeduría de mujeres.
I do practice, or I'm doing practice my internship in the Women's Ombudsman Office.
¿Sí?
¿Ahí puede escuchar eso? Sí, está bien.
¿Listo? Bueno, muy bien. Claro, digamos, queríamos arrancar.
It's quite hard to hear them.
De esta manera, yo creo que me parece que podemos guiar ahora es como
I think what we can do now is
una conversación,
to have
una conversación un
a
poco más
bit more,
libre, una cuestión en la que
a conversation where
pensar a
we can
asuntos que por
start to
ahora
think, especially. Stop hearing him.
No se le está escuchando.
We're not hearing you.
exacto. Entonces digamos que no se trata, estamos
So
aquí
let's say
utilizando el micrófono,
we're using a microphone here, a
sí,
microphone of the cell phone.
pero digamos que para mí
But for
lo
me,
importante es,
or as I see it,
digamos, comenzar
is to
esta
start
conversación
this
sobre derechos
conversation about
humanos,
rights, about
con tantos aspectos
society,
que
about so
afectan a
many
las mujeres
issues
rurales,
that are affecting the rural women,
preguntándoles a ustedes
asking you,
qué significa el ser propietarias de
what does it
tierras
mean
de
to
rancho,
be the owner of
o
land in this place,
de qué manera
or how
se experimenta la cuestión de ser propietaria de
being
tierras
owner
en
of
distintos
lands in this in an area like Vista Hermosa is, or in the location. Whoever wants to start.
Queríamos, sobre la que queríamos hablar, ¿verdad?
Bueno, sí, en general queríamos como una
Yes, in general, we wanted like a small introduction on how rural women are doing in Vista Hermosa, and retaking a bit what Manuel was saying. We're also interested, or we would like to start to talk about
sobre cómo es su relación como con
how your relationship is with Mr. for a second,
municipio, con la tierra.
and with the municipality and with the land.
El tema de la tierra muy posesiva del hombre. La mujer,
Land is very a property of men. Women work the same as men, but when we have a healthy position, they themselves say,
es que es de él.
no, it belongs to him. And I say, okay, for how long have you been there? And they say, 12 years. And I say, you're working together.
Desde ahí mismo
But
no,
from
no hay
there,
un concepto
there
claro
isn't
del
a
hecho de
clear
que ellas
concept
trabajan a la
on the
par
fact
de
that they
él.
work back to
Siento
back
que las políticas del
with them.
Estado han ayudado
I think the
bastante
state
porque
policies have
ahora,
helped at some
digamos,
point because now
van puntos o los proyectos son más fáciles y hay
projects are easier
cierto número de mujeres.
and there
Nosotros
are
las
certain amount of women,
asumimos,
so a certain
nosotros somos una
number of women.
cooperativa mixta,
We're a mixed
somos varias
cooperative,
mujeres,
so there are men and
pero
women.
por ejemplo
But
dentro
for
del
instance,
gobierno
they
ocupado,
themselves are
gobierno
concerned
corporativo,
in
no
the
hay
corporate
tantas mujeres. O sea, ellos van
governance.
entendiendo, o sea, ellos van viendo como
It's
las
more women.
dinámicas
They're like understanding the dynamics of a government,
del hombre. Es importante que las
and they
mujeres se
say
metan.
it is
Pero
important for women to get engaged, to get involved. But
inclusive
women
con
are
las
afraid of a
mujeres
challenge.
van haciendo
Even this
formación
weekend,
con
this week we
científicos y con talleres en
we
vivo
we did a
distintos.
mission with AgroSavia in the territory
Y,
with different workshops,
y
and
había una pregunta dentro de la
there was
encuesta
a
que era
question in the
cómo las
survey that
mujeres,
was
cómo las
how
observaban.
women
Un compañero de
were being
Guaymaral
doing, how they were
decía
observed, and
casi que
a
las
colleague
mujeres
from
son
Guatemala said,
muy
"Okay,
solitarias.
women here are different
Entonces,
from you."
la doctora con la que era
So
una investigadora decía
a
que muy
researcher
justo,
said, "Like, what do you mean
eso
us?
tenemos nosotras.
What do you have
Ellas hay
different?"
que
He said,
tajarlas y aquí hay que arrearlas, decía él.
Sometimes we need to push
Digamos,
you
sí cuesta un poco como en el tema de
or
esta
push them."
zona,
So
uno sí
that's
observa que les
in the
cuesta
rural
como
part. We see that
ese
it's quite hard for them
liderazgo,
to assume the leadership,
ese diálogo para
that
decir, bueno,
dialogue,
yo
in
tengo
order to
tantas
say,
derechos
okay,
como
I
usted,
have as
porque
many
nosotros
rights as you have
estamos
because
trabajando juntos.
we're working
Y
this
ahí
land
logramos
together.
una
So there's a great gap there.
Creo que Cristina también estaba, que quería intervenir acá. Entonces,
I think you wanted to intervene here.
si quieres, Cristina, sí.
If you would like, Christina, you go on.
No se escucha.
We're not hearing you.
Bien. No, no te escuchamos bien.
No, we're not hearing you well.
No sé si... Ahora sí, perfecto.
Now we
Ahora
can.
sí.
Yes, perfect.
Ahora, en referencia
Okay. In regards
a la pregunta,
to the question
en el tema de tierras,
in the subject of land,
en las mujeres.
land
Esa es una
in
de las
women,
problemáticas que tenemos
that's
en el
one of the
municipio de
problems that we have
Bucaramanga.
in Vista Hermosa municipality.
Porque en el municipio no tenemos,
Why?
no hay
Because in the municipality there isn't any
para los caballos,
titling
ni para
title of
nosotras
land
como
for
mujeres.
men
La gran
nor for
mayoría de las
women.
personas que
The vast
trabajamos
majority of people who are there
decimos que tenemos la tierra
say
de
that
por
we have
sí.
the land, but as such,
No somos
we are
propietarias
not the owners
de nada.
of
Porque en
anything
el momento que queremos
because whenever we
a
want
que nos
to
legalicen,
legalize our
salen
public deeds,
con unas
our
cosas,
deeds,
por ejemplo,
they always come up
estamos
with
hablando
things
de
like, for
tierras,
instance, now with the
Jimena
issue of
lo sabe,
that Jimena knows
en el tema
of the
del
issue
pueblo de Sacha,
Sacha Inchi
Magdalena nos graficó
crop
y nos
in
puso
Macarena.
dentro de las zonas de conservación y preservación de
They put us
todas
in
están
preservation or
dentro
reserve
de
area.
esta zona de conservación.
in that preservation area. That if we talk about preservation, we cannot work on that land. It stays quiet. Can you hear me?
Sí, señora.
Yes, ma'am. That land cannot be touched. When they talk about preserving, it's to take care of it and maintain. But then, what is the part that we have to 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 plant, to grow? So imagine now the whole process that we have to go in order to get our public deeds in or to legalize our properties. When they in the points where they talk about land, if we go ourselves as women, we do that part, the care that they have with us is deficient. So as such, there's always going to be that inequality in that part.
No sé si alguien más.
I don't know if someone else wants to.
No sé si alguien más le gustaría hablar un poco sobre esto. Sí, si quieres.
Bueno, en cuanto al tema de tierras,
Okay, in regards to lands, we women, it's very complex for us because we have several several weaknesses. First, that we cannot freely, as what colleague Jimena was saying, we cannot freely be like. Sorry, we lost her.
entonces, ¿por qué lo digo?
So
Porque
why am I saying this? Because around 1 month ago, we were organizing a project,
y donde pues por ley la mujer
and
tiene
where
que
by
tener
law, women need to have a healthy position, and the owner of the land is the husband, the one that has the property rights. And within my organization of victim women, they said it was it was necessary for the women to have a healthy possession of land, and they didn't want to let the wives to have piece of the land to carry out a project. So we're very empowered to work, but for our future, we're not empowered. Now, the other delicate issue is that many of us, many women, rural women, are, for instance, in the reserves area, natural parks area, and that's very complex because right now they were in a debate in the national strike against that problem because in Vista Hermosa, most of us are in a natural park in a reserve. So women that stops hearing her.
gobierno y digan. Entonces, había una
So
reunión una vez
there was a meeting once in Santo Domingo in my sidewalk in Agualinda where someone from a park said, a representative from the government said that that was a reserve of the government, that that was a natural park, and that anytime those lands had to be evacuated. So I raised the hand and I said, okay, and what's going to happen with us? If we leave that place, are you going to relocate us in a different place, resettle us, where we don't have to go to a city to beg for money or to ask for subsidized to the government? She said, no, we're not the government to give um, houses to anyone. So that's very complex because where's going to be the work of a lot of women of so many years that I've been here? And one more part is complex because we're not like very well organized, and that is what we pretend. We need to be more organized because together we can achieve a lot of things. And now, when we're doing this debate, 3 days ago I arrived from the strike. This debate is being given from natural parks where we don't find any natural parks representative there. We didn't find any representative. So that is quite complex, and for ourselves, we're not going to um, be surprised that in a few years from now the government is going to displace us, leave us from our or make us leave our lands where we have been working, just with the argument that it's a reserve. So you imagine that's the future that we have for our children. That's the future that we have for our for our elderly times. So I'm talking openly. We're screwed from the end of our husbands who are not appreciating and valuing our work, and we're also screwed from a government side that also wants to leave us homeless, so to speak. So that's a very complex point. Good afternoon. I would say that the problem that has been happening is that land, that we don't have access to the land as women, that we don't have the rights. That's an essential problem that has been happening from the state itself. Because if the state on the one hand has sees both parties as equals, men as well as women, because for instance, all these lands have no titles, have no deeds. Nobody has received the public deed, not even the leaders, community leaders, or nobody has received any deed, any public deed, um, or legal documents, because the government hasn't wanted to give the title to those lands, because what they want is to displace us, to strip us away from our lands, because they don't care about the farmer. So that problem, we need to see it from that point of view. Yes, I agree with my colleagues. Women, we are very hard workers because we're used to work hand with hand, hand in hand with our husbands, with our partners. But not all the fingers of our hands are equal, because there are colleagues that I know them in the farms. They have their wives. They have been coexisting for many years, and I've seen when they in a very um, equalitarian way, they have I don't know, some maybe they have broken up, and they have go and split in equal parts for the wife, for the husband, for the children. So it's not happening in all couples, right? So it's also a lack of education from the government himself or itself, because they don't have a priority in the farm, in the countryside, not even in the urban small municipalities, because we're having a bad education. That's a horrible education, because what is it that the state wants to have a dumped people, to have people with no education, not to exercise our rights. And most of us are abandoned there. We don't have any roads. We don't have any right to health. All of our rights are being violated. That's why we're claiming. So there, we have to handle it. We have to hang in there. We need more education. We need to help empower colleagues, not only them, but education for all of us as equals, men and women, because men and women are the ones who have to struggle for change, for social change. Because from a couple, there's going to be the example for the children, for future generations. I lost her.
También necesitamos. Entonces, eso que necesitamos. No sé si alguien más quiere decir, sigue algo sobre este
I don't know
tema.
if someone else wants to intervene. Okay, taking into account, I cannot talk too much from the countryside. I haven't been too much from a countryside. All my life, I've lived in the municipality, in the urban area, but I have met a lot of people from the farm, women from the farm, from the farms. I have met Jimena, seen her, how she has been struggling every year. So I see from a point of view, I'm sorry, what Lucia says, that's true. There's lack of education, lack of culture. We're missing to generate like that mindset in men that women are equals. But we cannot just enclose ourselves in the fact that to say that men are bad and they have not supported us too much. We need to take into account that they're coming from from a family inheritance that's so much like that. Transcendence are so much like that. My family also have a background where my grandpa was so strong, root with my grandma, and those things have to be handled. You see now, youth nowadays have decreased that. Why? Because it has to do with education. Education that's given that women have to be equal as men. So education and culturalization is something important. Now, what Lucia said is also important that people are educated, but not only in gender equality, to give the chance to everyone to study and to learn how to um, um, act in these spaces, more workshops, more diploma degrees or diploma courses so that women can be empowered, learn where to knock the doors. Because many times it happens that when you go to knock doors for these kinds of requests in regards to their lands and regards to their enterprises or projects they want to participate on, or if they want to submit a project. Many times they don't know where to go. They don't have much knowledge, and many entities take advantage of the fact that they don't have much knowledge, and they simply just ignore them. So due to that, is that we see the issue of due to this, we see that there is inequality at a level of female population. Because if I do not know how to read, a lawyer is just going to deceive me. If I don't know about lands, agropartes, or cormacarena are not going to pay attention to us. Why? Because many times, as we don't have the same intellectual status, they just laugh at people. They just laugh at people. So also, as a method of contribution to all people, it'll be to educate them. It doesn't matter if they're young or not, but also people who already have gone through this and not just a selected team, because we see that if there are educational proposals, just a selected small group realizes about that, just the municipality administration and just uh, some organizations, and then that group of friends are just collaborating among themselves to participating in this space or to incorporate themselves in educational fields, and then people who really need it, who are people from the farm who are really struggling, they don't even realize of those projects or opportunities. And they say, no, people do not want to educate themselves. Ask people in the farm how many educational opportunities they receive. Probably in 10 years, two or three, um, barely, right? So if we give them more opportunities, youth do not even want to live in a farm. Why? Because there isn't a way. There's not internet access. There's no signal connection, and they have to go to a town or to a city to be able to study. And they rather stay in the city from going back to the farm to suffer from difficulty there. So if we're not capable of providing more stability in the countryside, we're never going to see the countryside to progress because people do not want to stay in the farm, in the country. I don't know if someone else wants to participate. Before anything, what the colleague was saying. Sorry, what was your name? What you were saying now is very important. Yes, workshops are important. Here, for ourselves, it is important like to have coexistence workshops because we know, or not all women, but some women who re-victimize other women, and that we see that a lot here in the countryside. maybe because I don't know, because one has more than the other. So there are specific cases that have happened where there are people who hurt the feelings of other women, and that is something that's very complex. And it'll be good also, like for instance, to have like a workshop of coexistence and among ourselves to teach one another that we are women. It doesn't matter where we come from, but we are women who have suffered, and that among all of us, as what I was saying before, they're all together. Because if we don't have it clear, if we don't have a coexistence, if we don't have like the very clear on where we're pointing to, there isn't anything. So if among ourselves we point or we destroy the self-esteem of another woman, we're hurting ourselves. So that's what's happening in several parts of our municipality, and that's happened. Essential cases as that one, in which I talk about her, I judge her without, as we say clearly, judging without having any evidence, and that's quite complex. So a workshop would be good for that.
Lucía.
Lucia,
Referente a lo que dicen
in
de
regards
llevar,
to what
digamos,
they
de
say,
la ciudad, ¿cierto?
okay, let's say from a farm, from a country to the
Pues
city,
vale
from a
decir
rural area to the
que en
city.
el campo, la
We see that
mayoría
in the
de
countryside,
muchachos
most
del campo,
youth, most
pues
young
igual
people
terminan su
or
primaria y de
youngsters,
una vez
they
para la
finish
ciudad.
their basic school and they want
Lo que
they
pasa
have
es
to
que
go
en
to
la
the
ciudad
city. But
ahorita
what
con la
happens in the city?
inseguridad que hay, ¿cierto?
The
Porque hay
insecurity,
mucha inseguridad,
because there's a lot of
les tocan
a
a
lot of
mueren,
lack of security.
matan.
Uh,
Bueno,
Many
eso
times
ahorita
they
no hay seguridad
die, they
porque
are
uno
killed.
cuando
There's no
roba
security
el
anywhere.
celular por
Just
cualquier cosa de
to
una
steal
hackean
their
o
cell
algo.
phones or uh,
Ahorita
just to
cuántos
steal a cell phone, they kill someone.
no han muerto
So how
en
many
esos
youth have
medios.
died in this
Estudiantes,
um,
hijos de campesinos,
means?
van a la
Students,
ciudad a
children
buscar
of
mejor
farmers
vida y
who are
resulta que
going
los
to
papás
cities to find a
manejando
better
y
life,
allá.
and then they just
Entonces eso
are
pues no
murdered,
funciona así. Nosotros necesitamos la seguridad.
are killed. So
Nosotros
we need security
estamos
also because we
totalmente
are
desamparados.
totally unprotected.
Tiene más que, imagínense, por ejemplo, nosotros que necesitamos entonces,
What do
bueno,
we
que
also
manden
need? And
verdaderamente
that they really
educación a los campos, porque donde también
send
se puede
education to
hacer
the
un
farms,
diplomado
because
en una
if
ciudad, porque no se puede hacer también en el campo.
they can do
Hay
an
recursos para
internship
eso,
in a
pues
city
porque
or some
el Estado tiene que
schools in
pagar
the
ciertas
in
cosas
the
a la gente,
city, why can't it
pero
be
no
for the
piensan
farm
también en la
for the
educación y por
countryside
eso
also?
estamos
They
con
only
esos
think on
muchachos
war, but
jóvenes
they don't think in
colombianos que están
education, because
paralizados,
if
paralizados en esos grupos
they educate our
ilegales, ¿no?
children, they don't have to go
Están
to any group, any
en
illegal
ese
group.
sitio.
They have to locate
Esa es
themselves
la
in a place.
situación donde estamos
So
nosotros muy
that
parados.
is where we're very lagging, very left
Entonces, si ellos
behind.
van a mandar una
And for instance,
capacitación,
say, okay, yes, we're going to send a
eso por
training
pandemia,
by Sena,
hicieron
by,
unas capacitaciones muy mediocres.
and they do very
Es como decirle a uno, por ejemplo,
mediocre
casos que han
trainings.
dado. Llega un profesor que del SENA
Some
de tal, de
cases,
Barcelona, que
a
vamos a darle un
teacher comes
taller.
from Sena
Entonces, si se
to
echan
provide us with a
plata al
workshop.
bolsillo de
They
tantos que
just
les pagaron
get the
ahí,
money on how much,
firman sus
how
firmas,
many millions they're getting there.
estudiando, y ahí
We
lo que
sign up
quieren
and
es
just starting,
averiguar
they just
todos,
make
preguntar
us
lo mismo que
research
quieren saber
everything. We
todos y
end up
hacer lo mismo ahí,
searching
capacitados
everything
para
on the
aprender
internet
lo que le van a explicar a uno ahí. Entonces,
instead
eso
of
es lo que ha
receiving the
pasado también con el
explanations
profesor
by
que
the
dice, no, vamos
instructors.
a mandar una
So that's what's happened to all of
capacitación
those that say, okay,
para tal y tal
we're going
cosa.
to send a training there for
Pero
such and
a
such
uno
things.
solo le
And at
sirve
the end of
para
the day,
eso,
we
entonces
end up
uno ya sabe, me meto a tal
researching
página,
and
busco aquí
doing
y
things
esto es lo
by
que
ourselves,
quiero hacer.
and we
Lo mismo
just
pasó
end up doing
lo que
things
hicimos,
alone.
pues se nos mandaba una
It
vez
happened to
para
us
enseñarnos
that
a cortar,
they
porque eso
say
fue lo que
some
les
they
dimos.
sent someone
Ya último
to teach us
terminamos y ya hicimos ya
how to do
ese curso
garment,
porque
how to
la
work
verdad
with
que
garment,
sacar uno
and we ended up doing things
tiene que
by ourselves
sacar,
because that
sacar
who went to
provecho y
teach
así todo
didn't know
lo
anything
que uno
about it,
gana.
and they
Eso
just
saca
get the
uno
money.
adelante
So
también.
that's what's happening also at the
Porque
level of
hay
the
muchos
countryside,
recursos,
because there are a lot of
como
resources that
decirle a
arrive
usted
now, that have arrived
y
after this
que
process.
todo se va quedando en el
And
camino.
what happens?
Por allá
It
llega
all
una
stays in a
niña
path, in a
propia
way,
de
and just
allá de allá, que
leftovers
quiera que
is
sea para
what arrives
beneficiar
to
al
the
hijo
real
de otro.
areas of
Eso es
need.
así, son sacar el dinero y
But they just get the
siempre los
money,
mismos
and
que no
always the
llegan nada en
same
comparación para la
are
gente
having the
que sí necesita
difficulties
la
because
ayuda.
no aid arrived for the farmers, for the people in the countryside.
Sí, claro que sí. Después,
Yes, of course. After that,
Buenas tardes.
good
Bueno, pues
afternoon.
en mi punto de vista,
Well, from my
mi
point of
manera de
view, what I've
analizo que hay
seen
personas
and I
que
analyzed that
en el
many times
campo
we
les
in the
falta un
farm
poco de sentido de pertenencia
we are
o de
missing also a
estar
sense of
porque
belonging, or more
ven muchos
self-love, more love, because there are many people who have large farms, who have a lot of livestock. And what my colleagues have mentioned, they send the children to prepare themselves in the city when they just send money. I have the experience of many people who send money to the children and they don't know what those children can become or who they can become. If they have a good amount of livestock, well, there can be companies made out of farms. Give them a lot of cattle. Just give them motivation. Well, this crop, I'm gonna give it to you. They motivate them, and so that they can understand those who have farms can do great enterprises. And children have a small company, even though we don't have a farm, but they had a vision of in the area where I live, Costa Rica. For all this municipality, it was a coca producer municipality area. Apparently, there was a good life, money, a lot of money, and waste of money and good work. And but when there was the eradication, we were not prepared. We were not trained for a drastic change. So really, we all stayed with our arms crossed. Arms crossed. Many people left. You know, on our settlement, it was a small settlement, but a lot of people had to leave because they were living out of coca leaf. As that crop was not there anymore, people even left. Even the farmers did not have that thought, that vocation of livestock and of crops, but they just left. They just left the farms and they gave them away. So I repeat myself. For instance, my children, the aim was to because coca was the only thing that could be transformed because we are not in the capability. We sell just raw material, plantain, cassava, passion fruit, all raw material. We just sell raw material, like to give the added value. The only thing that most people did was coca production, and that's why good results happen. Because yes, it gave money. So that's what happens to us right now. That we don't have the capability, we do not have a mindset, we don't see the added value of crops that we ourselves can produce. So that's like a failure, lack of knowledge, lack of education. Because my children started with a small company or of yogurt company. They're just starting because we don't have the facilities, but really they themselves, it's changed our lives because we're living pretty much out of that, and it's changed the lives of people in the region because they pay them the milk at a very good price. W- They produce with the raw material from the region. They do yogurt out of lemon, out of aranza, out of pineapple, out of orange, of coffee, and of chocolate and aranza. I mean, out of products that are produced in the region. So they have like a clearer view, a clearer vision of showing something in the region, something different, to demonstrate that yes, it is possible. Yes, we've had difficulties, of course, like with our bare hands, our fingers, but we're hanging there. They're doing also peanut, like kind of peanut butter, um, like peanut cream, and it's been a couple months and they're doing very well. So sometimes what we're missing is like to be aware that products are very healthy, that they don't have any chemicals or any preservatives, and they're natural. They help in our health. Sachanchi chocolate and candies out of Sachanchi and chocolate candies out of Sachanchi. I think Christina's also raising a hand. I don't know if Christina, if you want to contribute with something there, if you want to say something.
Sí, chicas,
Yes,
y
girls, ladies and gentlemen.
una de mis interrogantes
One of my
y
questions,
de mis preocupaciones
my
allá
concerns
en el tema de la ruralidad y más que
in
todo
the
de cómo
rural
estamos
part,
viviendo
and
nosotras
especially
las
what's
mujeres,
of concern to
es
us as
que
women, is
desde,
that
desde los gobiernos
from the national government has always brought some plans and some strategies, some laws, which they just throw it to us, but they don't give us any explanation how that is managed. Because when they talk about protected areas, we know, or I know that there is Decree 2372 of 2010 and Law 2 that the one of them is of conservation and preservation, and the other one is, but the one, yes, it is possible to continue planting and having crops, but that's where I say if it is on-site preservation strategies, why do they not allow us to? Uh, why do they not allow us a production? It'd be very good, like to maybe I'm getting into an area that's not, but maybe from the institutions from Javeriana to explain to us that part, because they come with a lot of things and we're very confused. They said to us, this is a park, natural parks area, so you have to leave. They do not accept the proposals that women's organizations have either, as well as from general population, as um, farmers with capabilities. We're in the down part of parks where the proposals of farmers reserve areas, knowing that reserve farmers areas are established in law 160, but it's not convenient for for them either. So it's not like they don't do anything, but they don't want to let us do anything. But yes, they are putting us in a complex situation, which is that we're not the owners of anything. First of all, because of a situation that's happening, this whole um, amount of decrees and things that are being made up,
que no nos explican, mire,
and
estas
that they
son
do not explain to us, like, okay, look, this area is in this condition, in this position, but if it's not approved, you can continue working from this point. This has this legal figure, but that we can manage it from a different perspective. No, they don't put us in that in those facilities, or they just don't help to create any strategies that benefit rural women as well as in order to be able to work in articulation with the government, in coordination with the government, and that's what has taken us to go to the streets and to oblige ourselves so that all of our rights, if we do not express ourselves in some kind of actions or strikes, we cannot access anything. And likewise, we've always said to institutionalities or to national government that there are some projects, some strategies that also should be implemented at the rural area. Um, where, who are the ones that are helping the ones in the municipality area? We need to turn our look and to see how we can take connectivity so that people in the areas can study, that women learn also, and that can train themselves, because many want to do it, but there is not the possibility, the facilities. In order for us to be equalitarian, we need to be taken into account in in the distribution of land. It's from there where we think and believe, and we want women to be inside all those programs in a fair way and in a very personal way. It's just from myself, my own opinion. I've always said that transversality in these issues have affected us, has harmed us women, because everything in just one box. So when we're going to demand, they tell us, no, they're right there. But in the practice, we don't see it reflected.
regalías, que se supone que es para beneficio de
What
la
happened to royalties, which supposedly is for the benefit of community? A- An exclusive chapter was requested for women and rural women, and that still hasn't happened. because in the municipality, that was written chapters were taken only for approval. So every time we see that there isn't something real, really clear and tangible that can benefit us women. Sorry, I lost him. I'm not hearing him.
No estamos escuchándote, Manuel.
Manuel, we're not hearing you. Microphone.
No escuchamos.
We're not hearing.
Manuel no se está escuchando.
Ahora sí.
Ahora sí.
Yes, now we can. Thank you.
Entonces, sí les quería preguntar
So I wanted to ask you,
cómo ha afectado estar, o sea,
he's
ser mujer
breaking up.
rural en este momento de todas estas
How is
noticias
it
que
to
hay
be a
hoy
rural woman
y en medio
in the midst
de
of
una
all
situación
these conflicts and in the midst
y eso para
of the protest? How has that
esta
been
actividad
for
que vamos a hablar de
women
diálogos,
here?
esto a mí me parece re
Of
importante
course, we're going to talk about
y
dialogues, and I think it is very
que
important
para las
to know
mujeres
how
rurales.
this whole mess for rural women.
No ha sido tan fácil,
It
pero al
hasn't been
mismo
that
tiempo
easy, but at the
tenemos
same
nuestros
time,
propios valores
we are full of pride and
donde
value
nosotras como
of
mujeres
n-
nos paramos
knowing that we as
frente a un
women
gobierno
stood up in
y
front of a
decimos
government
no más
and
vulneraciones a nuestros
told
derechos.
them no more violation of our rights.
Donde de una y otra manera
Where in
pasamos
one way or the
ciertas,
other, we
certidumbres, pero
we go through through uncertainties,
exitoso. Yo
but it
fui
is
en delegación de mi
satisfying. I
organización de
went
mujeres
in
víctimas del
representation of
conflicto
my
armado,
organization
donde al final
of
estábamos
women victims of the armed conflict, where we were with 4 points
exigiéndole al gobierno
demanding the government
el
first
CISBEN,
the CISBEN, which is
porque
the health
por ser
insurance
víctimas
for
no
free.
debemos de estar en un
We
nivel
victims
alto como
shouldn't be in a
profesionales
high score
cuando de
of
una y otra manera el conflicto armado nos ha
health
quitado todo,
payment
¿sí?
when at some point the
Entonces
armed conflict has
uno
taken everything away from us.
pasa, o sea, lo material se consigue. Si yo perdí una finca,
So
si
what's
cualquier
the
problema
material can
general
be,
me despojó
you
de
can
mis
recover
cosas,
what's material.
seguimos
If
adelante
an
con
illegal
nuestras
group
vidas,
just stripped
pero
me out of my land, I can work again and get another piece of land. That's not the problem. Our children, our
de
families,
una y otra manera
that
estos
at some
grupos
point
armados nos han
these armed
quitado a
groups have
nosotros nuestras
taken
vidas, nos han
away our
matado.
children from
Eso
us.
nunca se consigue. Eso
They have
queda
killed
en
our children. That's
entonces ha
never
sido terrible.
um,
Y de represo viene el
recovered.
gobierno
There's
todavía
a
nos
terrible
acaba de regalar
gap there,
con lo poco que nosotros
and
hemos construido con nuestras
the
manos,
government comes and
sembrando nuestras
continues to
culturas,
bury us,
robándonos lo
trying
que
to
nosotros
take us
sembramos,
away from
elaboramos
or
futuro
make us
para
leave
los pequeños
the
los
places where
pequeños
we're
habitantes
building
que
a
quedan.
future for the small
Entonces,
children that we had. So
con esa valentía,
with that bravery,
no digamos odio y rencor
let's not
porque
say
es que
hate or
hay que dejarlo
hatred
a un lado,
or
¿sí? Aunque
or
uno el corazón
revenge,
todavía lo
because
tiene
we have to leave it
sangrando y
aside.
palpitando,
Although our
mientras
hearts
al
are
gobierno
still
nunca,
bleeding,
esa herida nunca
and
sanará
that
y nunca
wound
va a
will never
sanar.
heal. And
Pero entonces uno se llena de
but
valentía y de armonía
we
de
get
hacérsele
full of
al frente a un gobierno y decirle, hey,
bravery
pare
and
ahí,
to tell government, hey, stop it right there.
nosotras
Enough.
somos mujeres.
We're women.
Se lo decíamos en un video
We were
al
telling that in a
presidente
video to
Iván Duque,
Mr.
presidente
Ivan
del
Duque,
Congreso. Ustedes
President
tienen
Congress.
mamá, tienen
You
hermanas,
have
hijas.
mothers, sisters, children, or daughters.
Ustedes llegan a sus casas a
You get to
abrazarse
your
mucho, a
homes
almohadar
to
a sus
hug
hijos porque
with
ustedes
a lot
saben
of
de a dónde da el pan
harmony
cada
your
día ellos.
children because you have
Nosotros no,
a way of giving
nosotros
them
estamos elaborando
the
día a día y
daily
nos estamos ganando el día a día
food.
para
But we're
llevárselo a
working
nuestros
every
hijos,
day
para
hard
ver cómo
to
compramos
take
un lápiz para que
bread
les
to our
enseñen
children
a
to
ellos.
see how we can buy
Porque
a
es lo
pencil
que
to give
nosotros como
give them an
víctimas de
education.
derechos
When they
humanos
say that we as
tenemos,
victims
¿verdad?
have it all, and that's
También lo dice
that's false.
la oferta constitucional,
If a
tenemos educación
constitutional officer
gratis,
says we have
tenemos la
free
salud gratis.
education,
Eso es
we have
falso. Eso es
free
falso.
health,
Nosotros no
that's
tenemos eso
false.
ningún
We
gratis.
don't have that free.
Entonces, ahorita para mí es un orgullo
So for myself, it
que
is a
como
pride,
mujeres
along with my
vean que
women,
nosotros
of seeing
no nos da temor ni
that
miedo
we're not
seguir
afraid
dándoles al gobierno.
of facing a government.
Estamos en el paro.
And now we
Sé
were
que
in a
fue un
strike,
poquito
that yes, it was a bit difficult because they did not want to give us the participation, and I can stand anywhere and say that they did not want to give us the participation of getting to be involved there as victims of the armed conflict. But then we struggled, and I fought. I was the one that was myself there as representatives of victim women. I was by myself there. There was one man that's still fighting there, but we struggled and struggled until we scaled up 4 points: CISBEN, health insurance, land indemnification, and education, because that's what's more the most essential thing for us. The heritage that we can leave our children, and that's an experience that we already started to give or to take the first steps on, and that's a very, very beautiful experience for ourselves. And we need to continue going on. I'm telling them, they tell me, be careful because leaders, whatever. No, we're getting ahead. First of all, there is a God there that's going to take care of us. There's no one above God. There's no one above God, and we're we're always with the heart of God in our hearts, and that who acts well is going to have good results. So there's no fear. There's bravery of facing a corrupt government, and we also have a heart, and we have something open, and waiting, and waiting for you to help us as women victims of the armed conflict that we are, that they already opened as a door, which was the main door that I got there. And I really want to thank you for giving me the participation because this is very important for us. Because let me tell you, there are a lot of retaliations against us, a lot of recriminations against us. But there's a main door. First of all, the one of God, and you who open the doors for us to tell you all the experiences that we've gone through as women, farmers, victims of the armed conflict. I'm sorry. Mm, We'll come back to the conversation. I just wanted to interrupt for 2 seconds because retaking a bit what has been said so far. We would like to give the floor to the legal office from Javeriana, who want to tell us a bit about the experience that they've had in the territory, and also a bit about the possible partnerships and encounters that can be made. So I want to give the floor to the Chief Mauricio Vaquero, who I really want to thank him for joining us today and his team. Well, have a good afternoon. A very warm and special greeting to all of you. Well, first of all, we're going to start to share some experiences that we've had in of work in the territory, and we would like to welcome Professor Clara Wilches. Professor Clara Wilches, who uh, uh, in no longer than 10 minutes is going to explain to us the victims and explosive artifacts or improvised artifacts, explosive improvised artifacts project. Maybe if they enable us, please, if you can show our screens, please.
Habilitar compartir pantalla, por favor.
If you can let us share our screens, please.
Estamos pendientes de que nos habiliten compartir pantalla, por
We're
favor.
waiting for you to share the screen to help us. We're waiting for you to let us share our screens, please.
Profesora Clara, ¿usted está ahí?
Buenas.
Professor Clara, are you there?
Aló, aló, aló.
Hello?
Sí, sí, aquí la oímos,
Yes,
profesora
yes, we
Clara.
can hear you, Professor Clara. Yes, it turns out that I hadn't received the possibility of talking. Understood. Okay, now I can be with the microphone. Okay, so my name is Clara Rocio Wilches. I belong to legal office for more than 20 years, and I've got two projects. One of them is the project of support to victims of explosive artifacts or improvised artifacts, and the other one is a project called Building Dreams Together. And the first one started in 2004, approximately, and just breaking up. And the first project, what we do with last semester students is to support victims of explosive artifacts and also of forced disappearance to manage everything that has to do with the victims unit in the case of people victims of forced disappearance and explosive improvised artifacts. And in the case of just victims that have disabilities because of anti-personal mines and other artifacts. So what we do is to manage it in victims unit, Sinfosiga and the Ministry of Work, to the Agraria and other entities that unfortunately are violating their rights. And in the second project, that's called Building Dreams Together. In that project, what we do is to gather at that moment yearly, at this time, yearly 25 people victims of explosive ordnance, which right now we're online, and there are some people that are online, can be anywhere in the country, plus 25 voluntary people who usually are people belonging to Javeriana University. Those people obviously, first of all, they have to go through a psychological assessment in order to be with us in the process. And so a process of 25 groups is made.
Tienen que presentar o sea,
Those 25 groups have to give a deliverable at the end of the course, which lasts 120 hours. And during those 120 hours, we're going to be training these people in entrepreneurship and finance for non-finance experts. As I said, with the support of the legal office of the Javeriana University and also of the accounting office of the same university. There are different professors there and also from Politécnico Gran Colombiano University, and they teach us to be a bit more organized with our finance, and also they teach us how to submit a project, a written project to different institutions that can support those projects. Up to now, we started with building a dream together since 2015 up to 2020, well, up to 2019, let's say that way, in a face-to-face on-site, people were in Bogota, and since 2020, that the quarantine situation started, up to now, we have done it in an online way. As I said, the aim is not that the person has great knowledge or a lot of knowledge, but totally the opposite. That has a need of knowing how to manage the money, how to structure a project that's really viable. Within that group of people, of building dreams together, we have people who have directly gone through the conflict or lived the conflict, and they are belonging to civil population, to the army, to the police, also ex-FARC combatants and former ELN people as well as ex-paramilitary groups. Absolutely all of them in disability situation. And volunteers, as many of these people sometimes do not know how to write and read and write properly. So what they do is that they give a reinforcement to those people so that they can understand so that they can um, understand better what the teacher has said and to get a better understanding of a student. So that way they can present or submit the deliverable the last day of the training. We also have some juries because in each university, when you finish a course or a diploma degree, in this case, we have a jury that helps us with the assessment of a project. The projects can only be presented by the victims themselves, who will be the ones seeking the resources so that these projects can be carried out. These projects also have a limit budget, which have to go up to 5 million pesos. They cannot go to more than 5 million. That's what I can tell you. Thank you very much.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ahora creo que vamos a hacer
Now I
una
think
pequeñísima
we're going to
pausa
make a small
para
break
tomar algo acá y
to drink something
con
here
ustedes y
and
nos
to
volvemos a
rest,
conectar en unos
and we'll be
10
back
minutos
in 10 minutes
para seguir, primero para
in
seguir un
order
recuento
to,
de lo que se ha
first of all,
hablado hasta ahora y
to
después para
recap of
seguir
what we've
recordando como
discussed
de
so
lo
far,
visible
and then to tell you a bit more about the
que vamos a
possible,
continuar haciendo la Javeriana a
the work
partir
that
de
Javeriana is
que
going to
podamos
continue doing
hacer
here and the
juntos más
possible
adelante.
things that we could do together
Entonces,
later
para
on.
todos los que nos
So
acompañan desde
to
la
all those who are
transmisión,
joining us from the streaming,
los dejamos con un
we're
breve
going to
video,
leave you
un
with
breve
small brief video about Vista Hermosa,
y nos vemos en 10
and we'll
minutos.
see each other back in
Muchas
10
gracias.
minutes. Thank you.
En el marco del proyecto Diálogos Improbables, algunos de los diálogos sociales que ocurrieron fueron en torno a la creación de videos participativos. Los videos participativos como herramientas de investigación son más que una forma de producir contenido audiovisual, es decir, es más que hacer simplemente un video. Los videos participativos pretenden, por el contrario, ser herramientas para hacer investigación que sean accesibles para todo el mundo.
El video participativo como estrategia de investigación tiene al menos 3 componentes. El primero se refiere a la etapa de capacitación y busca permitir que todos los participantes, sin ninguna distinción, adquieran conocimiento y práctica en el manejo de los equipos de filmación y edición. Esto es esencial, puesto que es lo que realmente define la esencia del video participativo. El segundo componente tiene que ver con la participación y aprendizaje de metodologías de participación para la toma de decisiones. Es muy importante que los participantes no solamente aprendan el manejo de equipos, sino que se involucren de lleno en la toma de decisiones. Esto es lo que permite realmente el empoderamiento de personas en el proceso de llevar a cabo un video participativo. Y no solamente eso, también les permite luego multiplicar este modo de discusión grupal con sus comunidades. Así que aquí hay un elemento muy importante. El tercer componente tiene que ver con lo que sucede después de que se ha hecho el video participativo. La idea es que este material sirva como una herramienta para el diálogo, bien sea con la propia comunidad, con otras comunidades o con las autoridades locales o nacionales. Además, es importante que las personas luego puedan multiplicar y reproducir esta experiencia con miembros de su propia comunidad. De este modo, el video participativo no se convierte solamente en una experiencia, sino también en un recurso que les permite a ellos continuar el proceso de investigación sobre otras problemáticas que son de interés de toda la comunidad.
Creo que fue muy interesante poder compartir con personas de otros lugares del país, como lo fue de Buenaventura, de Cibú Norte de Santander, de Bogotá, profesores, personas, investigadores ya con trayectoria. Y fue muy curioso porque en mis condiciones, pues la verdad yo no tenía la experiencia ni nunca había participado en actividades o proyectos de investigación o en capacitaciones que tuviera que ver con videos participativos. Además, no conocía cómo era el mecanismo de los videos participativos. Creo que es una buena herramienta para poder hacer investigación que podemos aplicar en los territorios.
proceso muy bonito, muy hermoso, de mucho aprendizaje, de nuevas experiencias, poder conocer más sobre manejar video, sobre manejar audio o bueno, audiovisuales.
Esa misma capacitación se desarrolló en el municipio de Vista Hermosa con personas locales, donde adquirieron conocimiento de video participativo, donde ellas también mostraron tras esos productos o esos resultados, mostraron problemáticas reales del territorio y dándole un plus diferente, ¿no? Porque era las mismas comunidades del territorio proyectar un poco las problemáticas desde sus perspectivas. Me ha gustado, creo que esta herramienta nos ayuda a entender un poco más el territorio, nos ayuda a entender un poco más qué piensan las personas del territorio, pero sobre todo nos da insumos para empezar también a buscar las posibles soluciones que podríamos, que fueran la alternativa para solucionar estas problemáticas que están.
Tuve el honor de participar en el video participativo que realizó la Javeriana junto con la Universidad Chelsea y otras instituciones también que se unieron. Agradezco a César Pirabán, que fue quien nos invitó a ser partícipe de esta aventura muy emocionante, pero también cargada de muchas herramientas, conocimientos que nos ha permitido fortalecer nuestro trabajo como defensoras y lideresas. Estas herramientas me permiten avanzar y creo que ha contribuido mucho en mi desarrollo, pero de igual manera quisiera que se siguiera implementando para que pudieran beneficiar a otras mujeres en el territorio.
Bueno, recuerdo mucho ese trabajo que se hizo con Llanitos Comunicando, donde ellos, digamos que fueron afianzando a través también de nuestro acompañamiento y aprendizaje mutuo, sus habilidades en la comunicación con un propósito, que era el propósito de visibilizar las problemáticas que más los aquejaban o que más los preocupaban como jóvenes en Vista Hermosa. Y no solo entonces era como afianzar una herramienta que les podía servir hacia el futuro, sino una manera clara de expresarse y de participar activamente en su entorno social. Recuerdo mucho verlos trabajando dos temas fundamentales que los realmente los tenían preocupados. Uno era pues que cada vez a más temprana edad las jovencitas resultaban embarazadas, en embarazos por supuesto no planeados, no deseados, que modificaban sus vidas de ahí en adelante. Y por otro lado, que sentían que al terminar sus estudios de bachillerato, de colegio, no encontraban cómo continuar su formación en la región, en el corregimiento, en el municipio, perdón, y que realmente ellos tendrían que salir a buscar esa oportunidad, lo que resulta sumamente costoso y difícil, ¿no? Entonces, esas dos problemáticas ellos las pusieron en investigación de manera sistemática, juiciosa, a través de diversas fuentes como expertos, casos y crónicas y también la opinión propia del común de la gente y profundizar acerca de las causas, de las consecuencias, de las circunstancias que rodeaban esos temas.
Como a mí me gusta mucho todo eso del reportaje, del periodismo, y pues como encontrar un espacio en donde uno pudiera aprender, donde uno pudiera como ver o sea, lo que más me gustó en uno de los talleres, uno en particular fue que, digamos, hicimos la teoría normal para el reportaje, y de un momento a otro, listo, salgan a grabar a alguien, a entrevistar a alguien así. Y nosotros como que, porque no, pues, o sea, era chévere pues porque así de una forma uno ya podría como empezar a dar en práctica esos conocimientos que se dieron, y pues eso fue una de las tantas cosas que me gustó. Y que fue algo muy cómodo, pues porque habían varias personas de diferentes pues, pensamientos, jóvenes, adultos, mujeres, afro, de todos estos sectores sociales, y pues fue algo pues, que me gustó mucho.
Fue muy interesante que ellos expresaron claramente en el cierre de esa jornada que sentían que emprender de manera juiciosa una investigación para ponerla en una pieza audiovisual les había permitido no solamente informar y expresar esa preocupación, sino además darse cuenta y tomar conciencia de que esa situación no era natural, sino que era injusta y que ellos podían hacer parte del cambio a través de esas propias piezas comunicativas que estaban construyendo. ¿Cómo? Pues sembrando conciencia. Ese era lo que ellos decían.
Hola, soy Olfar y participé en el programa de investigación que se hizo aquí en el video comunitario. De verdad que fue muy importante saber, conocer, aprender un poco acerca de la investigación, entrevistar, hacer el ejercicio. Así que me fue espectacular poder trabajar en equipo también, ¿no? Para sacar un producto al final, saber la investigación al principio, cómo se hace, lo que es en comunidad comunitaria. Así que fue muy importante y muchas gracias por ello.
Bueno, muchas gracias por seguir con nosotros. No sé si se escucha bien.
Thank you for still stay with us, and I don't know if you can hear us fine. We want to continue with the presentation of the legal office of Javeriana. So I think with us we have Professors Joaquín Garzón, Viviana Treviño, and we continue with our Chief Director, Mauricio Vaquero. Again, thank you very much for being with us today. So without further ado, I want to give him the floor. Yes.
Bueno, muy buenas tardes. Doctor Joaquín
Hi,
Garzón,
good afternoon, Dr. Joaquín Garzón.
profesor en Clínica de Derecho y Territorio, les va a compartir lo que se está haciendo desde
I'm
esta
going to share
actividad
with
acá.
you what's being done from this activity. Go ahead,
Buenas
Doctor.
tardes, mucho
Good
gusto.
afternoon. It's a pleasure.
Me alegra mucho estar
I'm Joaquin
con
Garzón, and
ustedes
I'm
hoy
very glad to
en
be
esta
with
vía.
you in this
Muy
scenario. And I
rápidamente
want to tell you very
hay
quickly
actividades o diversas
two
actividades que
activities or
llevamos a
different
cabo
activities that we perform
alrededor de los temas, algunos de los que se han planteado
around
ya en este seminario
some of issues that
sobre
are being proposed in the
los
seminar
derechos a la tierra,
about the rights
los
to
derechos al
land,
territorio,
about the rights to
de
the
las
territory,
poblaciones
of
campesinas, las poblaciones
farmers
rurales, y en
populations, of
especial
rural
hoy
populations,
de
and the
las
case that's
mujeres
gathering us
rurales.
today of
Y entonces les
rural
cuento
women.
muy
So I want to
brevemente
tell you
como algunas de
very
las alianzas que
in a
tenemos
succinct
para los
way
derechos
some of the
humanos.
partnerships that we have and
Esta
some of the
organización
projects that
que
we're
ven
working.
acá
This
es
organization that you
Ingle,
see on
es una
screen,
organización muy importante
Black
del continente
Communities, is a very
colombiano,
important organization of the
y con
Colombian
ellos
Pacific.
tenemos una
And with
alianza
them,
para
we have a
los
partnership
temas de la
for
tierra en
the issues of
Buenaventura.
land in
Buscando
Buenaventura.
la
We're
titulación de tierras en las
seeking
comunidades de
the
Buenaventura,
deeds, the
de
titles
procesos de migración, los procesos de
of
desplazamiento,
Some
asentamiento,
lands in Buenaventura
quienes llegan
after
hasta
some
acá
displacement and some settlements that
básicamente de la
arrived to the
mano
city,
de una
pretty
organización
much along with an
de
organization
derechos del pueblo negro bonaverense,
that's advocating for the rights of Black
sus
people
comunidades
in
rurales.
Buenaventura, which is this
Este es uno de
Black
los ejemplos de
community
ejemplos
process.
de
This is
trabajos que hacemos,
one of a
pero
kind of works that we do, but this example
más que todo centrado
is
en la
especially
tierra urbana,
focused
la
in
tierra de la ciudad.
the urban land, the
El que
land of
sigue,
the city.
si me ayuda Mauricio,
The
es
next
otra
one, if you can
alianza
help
que
me, Mauricio,
tenemos
is another partnership that we have
con el programa de desarrollo y
with
paz del
the
Magdalena Medio, con quien
Program
hemos
Development
trabajado
and Peace with
mucho.
Magdalena Medio.
Estos proyectos
And
ya
with
tienen
them,
más
we
de
have
una
worked,
década
these two projects have more than one
en
decade
muchos procesos,
in which we've been
y con
assisting
el
this
programa de
process.
desarrollo y paz
And with
hay
Development
también
and Peace
algunos
Program,
casos de reclamantes de
there are some
tierras
cases of claimers of
que se
land
parecen tal vez un poco más a los que
who
ustedes están
are
sugiriendo
more similar to what you
o
were
a las
suggesting,
problemáticas que ustedes están
or the
sugiriendo
problems
para
that you
esta
were
reunión.
suggesting at the beginning of the meeting.
Poblaciones campesinas
Farmers'
en contextos
populations,
donde hay
in
muy amplia
contexts
legislación
where there are multiple regulations about
urbana,
land,
y hay, digamos, que hacer
and
una serie
it's necessary to do
de
a set of
investigaciones para saber si
research
hay propiedad
to
privada,
know
si
if
hay
there is
usos
private
agrícolas,
property, if
de
if
reservas
they
o
are reserve areas,
de algún
if there are areas of some kind of environmental protection, and in the landscape of multiple orders or ordinances that are regulating the rural land, to be able to establish if there is a possibility of the titling, title holdings, or property deeds. And with the development program, we have some projects around the titling or the titles of land, especially in Las Pavas farm in Magdalena Medio. And those are like two examples of some specific cases that we assisted of claimers of land, as I said, in urban as well as in rural areas. It's very difficult what regulates the rural land compared to the urban land. So we need to make that differentiation. And also, I want to tell you very quickly that we have other kinds of assistances, legal assistance, in issues that I believe that are in line with what was being proposed. And there are issues of participation, participation of different types, citizens participation. We assist previous consultations or prior consultations in the northern part of Cauca and Cartagena, and now in Magdalena Medio in Cimitarra. We are assisting prior consultations, in this case with African descendant communities, but also we're assisting the debate of around the popular consultations, which have had too much echo in Colombia, and that unfortunately, besides the citizens have stated themselves very repeatedly, state enterprises have started to take away land from that mechanism of participation, and we're also like assisting participation processes of that nature and trying to make them a reality, to make them in the best possible conditions. So, in conclusion, one of the legs of our work has to do with lands, with seeing if there are possibilities of supporting the claims of land, and another part has to do with citizens' participation in the context that can be possible, prior consultations, popular consultations, etc.
Profesor Joaquín, mil gracias.
Professor Joaquin, thank you very much.
Siguiendo con los
Well,
aspectos que
going on
queremos
with the
compartir con
aspects that we want to
ustedes,
share
como
with
ustedes se
you,
dan cuenta,
as you may realize,
tenemos un programa de
we
atención
have
de víctimas de
a
artefactos
program of
explosivos,
victims of
de víctimas
explosive
también de
ordinances, or
desplazamiento forzado,
also
como
forced
se los puede
displacement
explicar la
issues,
profesora Clara
as
Vilches.
what Clara Wilches explained to you.
Ese servicio pues no es en
That
Bogotá,
service
sino
is
es en
not in
territorios
Bogota, but it
indígenas
is also in
y
territories.
obviamente la mayoría de acciones se toman en
Obviously,
la ciudad de
most of
Bogotá
actions are taken in
por
Bogota City
domicilios y presencia institucional del
because of
Estado allí,
domicile and institutional
pero se
presence
asiste
of
y
the
se
state there,
acompaña
but
desde
it
las
is
personas
assisted,
de
and
la ciudad y
people
desde
from
los
the city
territorios.
are assisted from the city and from the
Pero también
territories.
el doctor Joaquín
But
Garzón
also Dr. Joaquin
amablemente nos ha
Garzon,
compartido
in a
que
very
la
nice
clínica del
way,
derecho y
kind way
territorio pues
has
está
shared with us
desarrollando
that
unos
from the clinic
programas
of law and
de
territory, some
gestión
programs
de
are being
tierras
carried out,
que tiene
including
alianzas
lands,
con
and have
territorios
partnerships with
y que está pues generando
territories, and
proyectos
that is carrying out
en
projects
Magdalena Medio
in
y
Magdalena
en
Medio
otros lugares
and in other
territoriales del país,
territorial places of the
brindando
country,
asesoría y apoyo
providing
jurídico
advisory,
en
legal
los
support
asuntos que demanden
in the issues that
sus comunidades.
their
Pero
communities
también
demand, but
queremos
also
compartir con ustedes
we want to share with
algo
you
que oyéndolas
something that
muy detenidamente
hearing
ustedes
them
han
very in a
expresado
very detailed way, or
y es
you
como
have
esa
expressed them,
necesidad de
and it is
prepararse,
like that need
de
of
recibir
training yourselves,
educación, de
of
cultura,
receiving
de gobierno, de
education,
tener una presencia
culture, government, of having
real,
a real
¿sí? No en
presence,
palabras,
not just in words,
sino que ustedes se sientan
but that you
acompañados.
feel
Y eso es muy nuestro
assisted.
en la Universidad
And that's very
Javeriana,
ours at Javeriana University.
no podemos reducir
That
la
means we
persona,
cannot reduce the
el hombre o la
person,
mujer solamente a una
man or
dimensión física,
women, only
a
to
una dimensión económica,
a
sino
physical
en la
dimension or to
integralidad,
an economic
en la
dimension, but
integralidad
in the
al reconocer que
integrality.
somos todos seres
Integrality starts
inteligentes, que
by
tenemos una
recognizing that we're
formación
all
y
intelligent
educación.
beings that need training.
Nuestro interés como Universidad
Our
Javeriana es el
interest at
servicio,
Javeriana University
es
is
el servicio.
service, is
Nuestra
service.
plata o nuestro
Our
salario
money
no
or our
es
salary
ayudar.
is to be able to
Ese es
help
nuestro
you.
importante
That's
y
our
más
important
excelso
and
interés
most
frente a las
excelsius
necesidades
interest
que están manifestando.
in regards to the needs that you're
En ese
expressing.
sentido, pues queremos
In that
compartir
sense,
algunas
we
actividades que
want to share
adicionalmente
some
hemos
activities that
realizado
additionally
en la ciudad
we
de
have
Bogotá.
performed in Bogota
Y
City,
invité a la doctora Viviana
and I
Triviño,
invited Dr.
que
Viviana
también hizo
Triviño,
su
who did her master degree in labor law in regards to city, but that could also be replied in the territories. That means all of these that we're sharing with you is not as such to show or to participate or to disseminate or to socialize what we do, but it is so that you can take note and to see how we can start to knit to knit some articulations or some links, some partnerships in order to be able to provide you with services and to start in a gradual way, in a prudent and serious way to care for your needs. So Dr. Viviana Trevino, tell us a bit about this research. There are more researchers I want to clarify. There is a research about prisons, about the labor issue, but this is a research made by Dr. Viviana about what happens in stratus 1, 2, and 3 in Bogota City. And all of that, as you realize, is very brief. And that same way, Dr. Viviana is going to share a bit with us about this matter. Go ahead, Doctor. Thanks, Dr. Mauricia. Correct. As I was, as what Dr. Mauricio was telling you, through the legal office of Javeriana, a research was made in order to give an answer to the question that we're seeing in our slide. How's the labor situation and the access to Social Security of women living in stratus 1, 2, and 3 of Bogota? Stratus. And legal part and labor part for women does not show the best landscape in the rural area or in the urban area, and even more considering the implications that the current contingency brought uh, uh, produced by COVID-19. There has been an increase in unemployment, in the salaries gap, and discrimination, and of course, in the increase of non-remunerated labor load for women who are not live who are living in a home. Therefore, the labor conditions of women are subject to a set of cultural determinants that undermine the workforce and generate lower salaries, uh, informality or labor informality, load in the home, and also inequality. So the labor conditions of women are limited to what historically the society has assigned it to customer care, to care of sick people, to being a janitor, for example. And many times women are obliged to accept labor offers that do not correspond to their training and to their experience, right? It's like they have to accept the employment, whatever employment existing, even though it does not compensate in the proper way their knowledge. The model also welcomed by the pensional and social security system generates some requirements that limit the compliance of women to access them a lot. So there's a higher probability of having longer periods of inactivity or unemployment. And of course, that will represent the density of contributions to Social Security. Now, within the results in the research, it was determined that 50% of women interviewed referred that they had felt harassed at work, could be verbally or physically, and that situation worsens even more when that work is the only mean of subsistence. Also, access to information. They were talking about that at the beginning. All of you were talking about that. The access to information, to education, to know the opportunities is not the most appropriate thing. It's not the most appropriate education for women, and that is reflected in the research that we perform. There is a lack of knowledge of 100% of female population that we interviewed in regards to programs of employment created in their favor. That's why it is necessary to create dissemination mechanisms that make known the programs that women are um, creditors of. And we as consultants in this research project, which is way broader, but as what Professor Mauricio said, we want to summarize it in the best possible way. We propose that for the legal office of Javeriana, we created a group dedicated exclusively to women, made up by students who were interested in that approach and in the access of justice of this important gender problem. Those students will train permanently in that matter and will also gather data, statistics, and information that could uh, identify the problems and the different needs of women. This in order to strengthen knowledge and to propose solutions, to articulate research with the Department of Faculty, not only our Faculty of Legal Sciences, and likewise to also get a recognition, not only on an institutional level, but a joint work with local and national entities. We have another research also since 2018 in the legal office. Some assistances have been provided in legal advising to Venezuelan immigrants in labor law and social security. Since 2018 up to now, two cross-institutional agreements have been made for care to immigrants. The February 2020 agreement with the UN, with ACNUR, and the agreement for reception of requests by civil society as Funda Colvin and the Care to Immigrant Foundation. Under that figure of associated work, the legal consultancy receives many cases with the aim of making an assistance and, of course, a legal advisory to these migrants, starting from the checking of all those requests, consultancy along with um, labor law and has built a matrix with the aim of gathering in an organized way information and in proposing an analysis of requests about labor conflicts and access to social security. Within those perceptions that came up in a repeated way, we can find difficulties to access work because of a lack of required documentation, reiterated cases in regards to losses of workplaces because of the outbreak of COVID-19, as well as the work conflicts where the termination of contracts was noticed with uh, provided by the closures, the lockdowns, and quarantines. That is why the need emerges to create measures that can contain, prevent, and limit the actions in such situations. In a summary, these are the two researches that we wanted to share with you. This research wanted to expose the problems and to make them more visible, as well as to propose solutions and generate changes from the academic sector. Thank you very much, Dr. Mauricio, and all the ones that are present. Thanks, Dr. Viviana. You see that not only we're working an issue of victims of um, explosive artifacts and forced displacement territory, as what it was explained by Dr. Garzon, but also doing research. It was done with the International Work Organization, and the impact is expected to be not only at a Colombia level, but at Latin American level, with we assist Venezuelan immigrants, probably, immigrants with legal needs and from their territories or from your territories, we can assist them. What else can we socialize so that you can know what is of interest for you and what we can reply in your territories? So you see here we have a week that we carried out in the legal uh, office. That's our office based in Bogota. We did several um, research with different leaders in Teusaquillo and Bogota, and we involved in this work the psychology faculty that gave us a workshop in regards to prevention of mistreatment. So Dr. Ana Maria Parada talked to us about women in the law of families. Dr. Consuela Quiñones talked about criminal law and gender construction, and Dr. Kual who talked about women and right to work. That need that you express of training and of knowledge is vital. Sorry, I think we lost the signal. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Ah, sí, perfecto. Ahora
Yes.
sí.
Yes, perfect. We're hearing well, Paloma. Yes, okay, so here we have the event that we call the Women's Week, talking about prevention of mistreatment in relationships, led by psychology faculty, and this led by professors in our legal office. Now, we also developed that we call the Great Forum of Women. And why are we calling it the Great Women Forum? Because it engaged all offices that provide services and social services in Pontificia Universidad Javeriana, led by the legal office of Javeriana University. And we can say that there was the canon office, the accounting office, the family finance account office, Javi Salud, Prosofi, the psychological office, and ourselves, of course. 50 women and one man or a few men, because we men have to train ourselves. Women in their nature and in their call, personal vocation, they're called to help us because, as what someone said there, we suffer a lot, but many times it's because of pure ignorance. We need them to help us. And as a man, I can tell her that in women, there's a future of a country. In territory, there's a future of a country. And I want to tell you that we had two sessions where very interesting topics were touched. Very interesting. So we saw the issue of women from different disciplines. So research happened, research made by Dr. Liliana Sanchez was shown a PhD in law and in juridical sciences in Javeriana University, talking about conclusions of what it found to do an analysis of study and all the existing information in the country that was of national dissemination and of importance for all the state and Colombian institutions about prisons and women. And you see another interesting topic. As all the offices were integrated, we could approach all the needs that women have. And this talk I remember very nicely because when it has given, it generates a lot of impact. The right to breastfeeding by women and by children. Dr. Margarita gave us to us. She is a dentist and specialist in orthodontia in Javeriana University, and she works also for UNESCO. So she explained to us the relevance that it has in our children to receive breastfeeding about the the teeth health and all the mouth health in all life. Now, also Professor Maria Cristina Romero provided us a fabulous talk about identity. Sometimes we men can also ask ourselves on why, many whys. So here all the whys were resolved, were clarified, because there's not anything as valuable as appropriate as being a woman and recognizing the value, the dignity of being a woman. Maria Cristina Romero helps us on that. Now, Dr. Sonia Lopez that works in the business management faculty, and she arrived from Germany after doing her PhD in family finance. She told us how in from our homes we can manage our resources. Resources will always be scarce, will always be scarce because they go around the need. But she gave us a lot of ideas and elements so that women homes in that scarcity, that's like a constant, can be at some point properly used in the best way and in the most efficient possible way for all the family. Now, Prosofi, what is Prosofi? Is the social program, the social engineering program of the engineering faculty. Prosofi carried out an activity of awareness raising and self-esteem because when we know who we are, we love ourselves a lot. And when we love ourselves a lot, we give a lot of love and a lot of um, appreciations of Prosofi. Engineering faculty was present there. Now, there was also the entrepreneurship. We have Javeriano Entrepreneurship Center. In that time, Dr. Fabiola Torres Agudelo, but nowadays Maria Fernanda Patiño as director of Javeriano Entrepreneurship Center can take us idea on how I project my economic future and in one of my family. Well, that talk also generated ideas in that sense. We can talk that within the Colombian states, women cannot be lagged. They are leaders. Nowadays, we have a vice president that's a woman, and we have great leaders. You are listening to us. Just the fact that you're here already invites to reflect each of you on what the mission that you have is, because this is not casuality. Because someone said that everything in life is casual. Probably you that are looking at us have a lot of concerns. So it's so nice that you can train in these issues, generate concerns, and that those concerns were translated into effective actions for your own good and for your communities. Now, psychologist Carolina Morales talked about discrimination against women, and Juliana Mora talked about women in work. That means women have rights in labor part as well as men. It's a human being, man and women. It's two ways of expressing human beings. However, there are affairs that need to be reviewed. That's why we did the Great Forum of Women, and we will also like to reply it in with you, reply with you, and inviting not only women who you have influence on, but to invite other women from the country with whom we're working. And in that sense, I wanted to tell you that that concerns that you have are not only exclusive of you. We're starting work processes of legal advisory, and that our students can provide support to these mm, electronic networks or online networks and communication systems. So we are beginning our work with multi-ethnical women association in Quindío. We're beginning our work to provide legal advisory to our students with houses of empowered women from Buga and Bogota. I remember that one of you very kindly said, okay, we need to empower ourselves. How do you empower yourselves? With knowledge, and with very good knowledge, not only of knowing things, but of doing them well. And doing them well, of course, includes the other, includes my family, includes my community, the good of others. That's what we're seeking. That's what we want. So going on with these activities here, with these activities, we can tell you what we did with AXO, with Solidarity Action, a dissemination in the whole rural sector of audited capsules so that they could arrive to all territories of the country. We did that last year, and we can, according to the themes that you want, we can make additional auditive capsules to get to your territories and to illustrate you. This is very important. The legal voice, I beg you to take note of this because this year it's been dedicated to women, protection and radio coverage and legal voice in the territory. I'm sorry for a second. Just a moment, please. I have I have a sound issue here, or something pending here. So we want you to take note of this. It's a reality. You push this flyer, and we're going to share with you through Dr. Jairo Aguilar. I'm going to send it to Professor Jairo Aguilar so that he can share with you and with all women. Next program is this Thursday. We will approach the rights that the Constitution gives to women from a public and political point of view. So you're very invited. Every 8 days, the legal voice is a fact, it's a reality. We would like to invite you to participate from the legal voice program. That was pretty much it. That was it. What is it that I want to convey to you? That we can agree in this meeting to start the secure process, very gradual training process, where we can consolidate an articulation in partnership with you, and we can that way provide you the legal service that you need. So I'm going to send you to Professor Jairo Aguilar this flyer so that immediately he can disseminate it in all the community of that area so that you yourselves please get to mm, La Voz Jurídica, the legal voice, and you can get to know more about us. Thank you, professors. Thank you, organizers, and especially thank you, women interested in your communities.
Muchísimas gracias por su
Dr.
presentación.
Mauricio, thank you very much for your presentation. Really, too much work from the legal office. As we had mentioned with you previously, the aim was simply to today to present this information. It's a lot of information, and what one is to start from this first encounter to start net possibilities of assisting women in Vista Hermosa from the legal um, office. So thank you very much.
Manuel, ¿ustedes nos están oyendo?
Yo perfecto.
Can you hear us now?
Sí, señor.
Perfect. Yes, sir.
Es que tengo dudas si en el
I have doubts
chat salúdica nos
if
están escuchando.
in the house, the meeting house, they're listening to us,
Pero bueno,
they're
Cristina,
hearing us.
de
But
todas
okay,
formas,
Christina.
ya que usted nos está
Anyways,
escuchando y que el
as
doctor
you're
Mauricio
listening
también
to
nos está
us,
escuchando,
and Dr.
esta
Mauricio is
era
listening to us, this
la idea que
was
teníamos el día de
the
hoy.
aim that we had today.
Lo que quería presentar
We're
el
missing
Instituto de
what
Derechos Humanos
Institute of
y
Human
lo que
Rights
quería
wanted to
presentar
show, and what
el proyecto de la profesora
the
Claudia
project of
Tovar y
Professor
de
Claudio Tovar and of
Paloma Cobo.
Paloma
Yo no
Cobo.
sé si realmente
I
hay
don't know
muchas
if really
dificultades.
there are many
Esta mañana, doctor
difficulties.
Mauricio, para que
This
lo
morning,
tenga
Dr.
presente y
Mauricio,
sirva también de contexto,
so
teníamos
that you
otra
can have a
formación
bit of context,
con
we
el
had
Consejo
another
Municipal
training
y nos tocó
with the
cancelarla a
Municipality
mitad
Council, and we had to
de
cancel it
sesión porque
in the midst of
la
the session
conexión simplemente no
because
funcionaba.
simply the connection did not
Entonces,
work.
Cristina, yo no sé
So,
si
Christina, I don't know
puedes
if
intentar hablar con
I'm
Paloma a
going
ver
to
si
try
ella
to
puede
talk to Paloma
acompañarnos
to see if they are
ahorita
going
por
to
el grupo
continue
y si no,
listening or not.
simplemente podríamos intentar una próxima reunión, Cristina,
Otherwise, we simply
quizás
can
en
try
una
another
mesa
meeting,
pequeña,
probably a smaller
donde
group,
ustedes como
where
veeduría le
you,
indiquen
as
al doctor
Ombudsman Office,
Mauricio
tell
qué
also,
es la
also Dr.
veeduría de
Mauricio
mujeres
what
valientes en
is the
Vista
Ombudsman
Hermosa
Office of
y
Brave
que
Women in
ahí mismo
Vista
ustedes a
Hermosa,
partir de lo
and
que
that they yourselves,
presentó
starting
hoy
from
en
what
el consultorio
Dr.
jurídico
presented today of
puedan ver
uh,
qué temas
legal
consideran
office, you can
de
tell
mayor
us
interés o
what
que
was
pueden
of higher
priorizar
interest for
para
you,
empezar a
and then we
construir
can
una próxima
prioritize in
reunión.
order to be
¿Le
able to
parece, Cristina?
build at some point. Do you agree, Christina?
Jairo, alcanzaríamos a medio
Jairo,
presentarles
we could
a
kind of
doctor Mauricio,
show Dr.
a
Mauricio,
Viviana y a los que estén
Viviana,
presentes
and the ones that are
como
present,
la estructura de la veeduría.
like the ombudsman structure.
Dame un segundo, yo trato de comunicarme
Give me a
con los que
second.
están
I'll
en la
try to
sala, porque
communicate
lo peor
myself
es
with the
que
ones that are in the room,
tengo la duda si los que están
the
en la
ones that
casa
are in the room,
lúdica nos
because
están
I have a
escuchando.
doubt
Yo creo que
if the ones in the house, the
simplemente
meeting
lo
of
que
women,
estamos
are hearing us.
escuchando el
I
doctor
think
Mauricio,
simply Dr.
ustedes y
Mauricio,
yo.
you and I are listening to one
Dame un
another.
segundo, intento
Give
comunicarme
me a
con ellos.
second. I'll try to communicate myself with them.
Disculpa la pregunta. Lo que pasa es que usted
Sorry for the question.
referenciaba que podíamos
You were
realizarlo en un
referring
grupo
that
más
we can
pequeño,
make a smaller dialogue,
que si de pronto no están
and
escuchando en la
well,
casa
if
lúdica,
they're not
podíamos
hearing
continuar con el
in
proceso
the
con las personas
house,
que
we
están
could continue with
ahí
the process
presentes,
with the
pues
people who are present
posiblemente pues
today,
después no puedan participar.
because possibly
Entonces
later
no
on they
sé,
cannot
pues sería
participate, and
Me
then
la
parece perfecto,
we
oportunidad
will
de
lose
Cristina.
the
tenerlos
opportunity.
Dame un segundo y confirmo
Yes,
y
perfect.
ya,
Give me a second. I'll
dame un
confirm.
minuto, por favor.
Give me a minute, please.
Aquí, ¿dónde la van a bañar?
Aló, doctor Mauricio, Cristina, Adriana. En efecto, ellos en
Aquí
la
Hi,
casa
Dr.
estoy.
lúdica
Mauricio, Christina,
nos
Jenna.
están escuchando
Indeed, they're not
perfectamente.
hearing us
Las personas
properly.
que están en ese espacio,
People
doctor
who are in
Mauricio, en
that
Vista
space,
Hermosa, nos
Dr.
están
Mauricio and Mr.
escuchando.
Mosa, are not
Entonces yo
hearing
les
us properly.
propongo que
So I
cerremos la
would propose
actividad
that we
entre
can close the
nosotros.
activity,
Ya tuvimos
that
la
we can finish it
presentación
among
del
ourselves.
consultorio
We already had the
jurídico,
presentation of the
diversas
legal office
líneas de
and all
trabajo que han
those
venido desarrollando
um,
en el territorio. Le
lines that have been developed in the territory, Dr. Mauricio, so that the Ombudsman Office can introduce herself, so that you could take an idea on what this space is about.
Realizando estas mujeres. Y en una próxima ocasión, que espero pueda ser pronto, ya después coordinamos agendas, nos podríamos sentar nuevamente y empezar a tejer esas posibilidades de trabajo. ¿Le parece, doctor?
Sí, como ustedes digan. Me
Perfecto,
parece muy
doctor.
bien. Lo que me interesa es que podamos empezar a la brevedad posible a partir de la segunda quincena de julio.
Perfecto, doctor. Me parece muy bien. Muchas gracias de verdad por toda su comprensión. Entonces, Cristina y Adriana, no sé si ustedes tienen alguna organización o simplemente la que quiera ir adelante con la presentación de la veeduría de Mujeres Valientes para que el doctor también conozca ese espacio.
Sí, señor. Muy buenas tardes. Yo soy Jennifer Rojas, ya me había presentado anteriormente. Quería dar una breve presentación de la veeduría. Nosotros somos quienes hacemos veeduría de Mujeres Valientes en el municipio de Vista Hermosa, quienes hacemos seguimiento a las rutas de atención basadas en violencias basadas en género. Estamos conformadas, llevamos más de 4 años trabajando. Estamos legalmente constituidas con Cámara y Comercio. Somos 5, también 6 con Cristina. Está Adriana Rodas, representante legal. Sonia Rocío, que es vocera. Angie Guerra, secretaria. Y Angélica Piñeros, la de comunicaciones y todo el tema de publicaciones de nuestra información. En breve, mi compañera Adriana, que es una de las más antiguas, les va a dar un relato de la historia de cuando iniciamos. Gracias.
Muy buenas tardes para todos y todas. Pues es un placer poder estar con ustedes hoy aquí. Les quería contar un poco sobre la veeduría. Esta veeduría nace por una necesidad sentida, y es que en el territorio se crean unas rutas de violencias basadas en género, pero pues el que haya unas instituciones y haya unas rutas no significa que esté claro el procedimiento o se cumpla a cabalidad. Es ahí donde surge esta veeduría, surge en el año 2018, en el mes de junio, y es apoyada por Limpal Colombia, que tiene un profesional que nos hace asesoría, que es la señora Maida Roldán. Esta es la primera y única veeduría que inició en el territorio, en el departamento del Meta. El primer objetivo que tuvimos es el de hacer vigilancia y control en las rutas de violencia basadas en género y atención integral a las víctimas de conflicto sexual, las víctimas de violencia del conflicto sexual dentro y fuera del marco del conflicto armado, perdón. Esto ha permitido que de una u otra manera se puedan realizar seguimientos a los casos que se han habido en el territorio. Como sabemos, Vista Hermosa superan los 88 casos según el reporte de la unidad de víctimas, y por eso pues desde la veeduría de Mujeres Valientes hemos estado realizando diferentes actividades y seguimientos. En las acciones que realizamos en la actualidad hemos avanzado a tal punto que nos conformamos hace un año. Esta semana cumplimos un año como red departamental de veedurías. Promovimos otras veedurías en otros territorios y por ser la más antigua, promovemos, digamos, la creación de la red departamental y apoyadas con Limpal, con la profesional Maida Roldán, y se crea la primera red departamental de veedurías, así como lo reconoce el Comité Descentralizado, la Ley 1257 del 2008. Esta red departamental tiene en el momento la red Villavicencio, la veeduría Villavicencio, la red de Mesetas Meta y Vista Hermosa. Actualmente se crea otra veeduría, que es la veeduría de Guamal, y pues la que hace parte, digamos, el crearse se vinculó a la red departamental porque tiene el mismo objeto que nosotros. Nosotros en la actualidad ampliamos nuestro objeto de seguimiento y también hacemos seguimiento a las políticas públicas de equidad de género en el territorio. Tenemos un informe que se llama Las Mujeres Hablan, que hicimos el lanzamiento como red departamental, y este informe habla del seguimiento y la implementación de la Ley 257 del 2008 por una vida libre de violencias para las mujeres y niñas del departamento del Meta. Nosotras somos autoras y promovemos este informe. con el fin de dar a conocer los capítulos. Primero, pues el contexto de violencias que han habido contra las mujeres en el departamento del Meta. Segundo, ser como una radiografía de las instituciones, digamos, especialmente en tiempos de COVID, qué acciones se implementan, bajo qué ley, y digamos como qué acciones se siguen implementando teniendo en cuenta que en el COVID-19 ha aumentado la violencia y que pues digamos ha tenido que reestructurar la forma de atender los casos. Tenemos un capítulo 3 en el informe que habla de la historia de vida, los acompañamientos de las mujeres, pero algunos, nosotros llevamos como una base de datos, unos hechos narrativos de, digamos, de los casos que miramos que eran buenos y el capítulo 4, para el derecho a una vida libre de violencia para las mujeres adolescentes, firmado el pasado
Signed last June of 2020, which follows up or does a follow-up to She's Breaking Up Again.
Comités o
These
estos pactos.
committees and these agreements are made.
Si miramos,
She's breaking up a lot. We see in Metro Department it will have a higher figure than that because cities as Medellin or others population is higher. So that also, if we compare rates in Metro Department, we have very concerning figures, and it's important to link in chapter 5 the stories of struggle and resistance of each of the people that were authors of this report, to make visible also the work that we do and also to get to know it. So I think the first step or the most meaningful step has been the transformation that there has been in the lives of each of us in the process of most of us that are part of this, and that we have decided to change our lives, training ourselves as what women were saying in a moment. I believe the tools are given. We must manage them and adequate them so that we can continue progressing. All these actions of Ombudsman Office we do under the 850 law of 2003, which strengthen that mechanism of flexibility or applicability of law for women in this case. And finally, we want to convey the work in a summary. We're the only ones in the territory who literally go and assist women to denounce, to report. This time we were in a meeting, they reported a case, and subsequently we finish here. We'll go to do
respectivo seguimiento y
the
evaluación
follow-up and valuation to see where we can or how we can intervene. I'm going to leave you with my colleague Angie, who will explain a little bit more about the activities that we do as Ombudsman Office, not only train to officials, but also we create other strategies in order to be able to get to communities.
Buenas tardes para todos y
Good
todas.
afternoon to all of you.
Bueno, mi nombre es Angie Paola
My name is
Guerra,
Angie
soy la
Paola
actual
Guerra.
secretaria
I am the
de la
current
Mayoría Mujer
secretary
Valientes del
of
municipio de Vista Hermosa.
Brave Women
También hago
Ombudsman
parte de la
Office
red de jóvenes
in
que
Vista Hermosa
desarrollan
municipality. I'm also part of of youth network in the
este
municipality.
trabajo
I'm
y
going
que
to tell you a
como
bit about the work.
presentaba Adriana, nosotros las
As what
feministas
Adriana mentioned to you,
tenemos
we do assistance. We
aquellas
provide
mujeres
assistance
que
to those
deciden
women that decide
hablar, ya no
to
quieren
talk,
callar
like
más,
not to
deciden,
be shut
nosotros
anymore,
les
but
dio
to talk, and
acompañamiento
we
a
uh,
realizar la
do
denuncia,
the assistance
también un
to make
acompañamiento
the
cuando tienen
report,
que hacer
and also assistance
el debido
when
proceso
they have
pues
to go
de
through the
salud
due
o
process of
hospitalario,
health
les
or
acompañamos
hospitalization.
también,
We assist them
pero
also,
también
but also
hemos decidido
we
tener
have decided to have
espacios fuera del municipio
spaces out of a
específicos de
municipality
defensoras,
to train
no solamente pues
advocates or
de la
defenders,
zona urbana,
not only in
sino
the
también de
urban
la
area,
zona rural,
but also in the
donde
rural
hemos
area,
dado a
where
conocer
we have
en algunas
also make
partes pues
known in
como la
some
deuda en
parts
sí no
how
tiene
the
presupuesto.
Ombudsman Office
Entonces, pues hemos
is
tratado de
providing
trabajar en la
assistance. So
zona rural,
we wanted to
ya
work in the
que
rural area
la mujer
because
rural necesita
rural
tener
women also
conocimiento al igual
need
que las mujeres
knowledge as
de la
well
zona
as
urbana.
women in the urban area.
Importante,
It
hemos
is very
estado en
important.
algunas
We have been in some
partes
parts
y nos hemos dado cuenta que
and we've
la gente
realized
pues poco conocimiento tiene
that
acerca
rural
de
women have
diferentes tipos de
lack of
violencia,
knowledge about the
donde
different
ellas
types of
no,
violence,
no
where
han
they
sabido identificar
They have not been able to, they have not known how to identify them. And also the plans that we have at this time, obviously, is to grow, and we give little time, but we have been for short time, but we want to grow in enlarging the ombudsman office group and also try to exercise because starting we don't have budget and it's a big complex, but we've had a bit the support of the police as we have a new lieutenant as Yuri Castañeda that has supported us in these activities and that has made us to progress. Also thanks to Impal, which has given us important guidance, and that way we've been able to do something noticeable in the municipality as it is mm, May 25th, March 8th, and those special dates that for many are new and for ourselves is very important because we also make the ombudsman office visible, but also other kinds of violence on where they can appear, where they have to go, and all of this. Also, uh, besides doing ombudsman office, we try to be friends with women because they for fear or not to go to a psychologist or anywhere. They they don't want to go to any public place. So we help so that the plans that we have in this pandemic time that has affected a lot domestic violence and children have also suffered sexual violence, physical violence, psychological violence. So we've tried to make center parks, recapture of parks, and to try to make strategies to reach children also. We are still in those plans. We want to continue. God, first of all, gas, and if God allows, we'll continue with that. And likewise, to get to settlements that are close to the municipality, where we have wanted a bit to, as we were telling Jairo, we also wanted some training because we also require training to convey those trainings to them because we must also have more knowledge in everything regarding the routes, regarding laws, and be more creative because obviously we're in the path of learning and we have wanted, and with that we want to ask Averiana, also Hyra, that we tell them that, and that's kind of in a small summary the work of the Ombudsman Office. Thank you very much.
Estrategias que generamos,
Bueno, pues
perdón, ay, Cris, pero ella comprueba un poquito lo que decía Angie.
Sorry,
Las
just going on with what Angie said, the strategies that we generate, it's all linked. For instance, if we do saving groups, is to get to those women that sometimes do not leave their homes. From there, we identify different types of violence. When we go to the park, we go to the rural areas and through articulation with different institutions, we can locate women that are victims of violence, but that effectively do not know the information, and we provide them the routes in those spaces. Likewise, in movies, what we do is to promote for children so that they can know and denounce and to know where to go in case some of their rights are violated. In that way, to do a lot of activities, training among them, training to officials, to schools, everything with the aim of strengthening and I highlight a lot what was said in regards to creating a new legal gender office. I think it's very important, and I want to touch something. I don't want to offend anyone, but not all women represent us, and that's um, when they said that we had a president. In that purpose, what we wanted to strengthen ourselves to join efforts for for all of us and to strengthen ourselves to how to eliminate gender-based violence. My colleague Christina, who's doing a process, a voluntary process in the ombudsman office to know more about it, law 1257, 1359, all those that are covering us, as well as 1761 in 2015, so that she can get to strengthen herself and to be a direct part of the Ombudsman office. And likewise, we would like to invite women who want to be part. That's a voluntary space where we can get some more space and more women. We have an idea that we want to promote it at a departmental level and the national level, and it is that it turns out in each community action board, committees are created, and we believe that, or we want that at a national level and departmental level, there is a committee created for preventing the gender-based violence. Those women are going to be repliers and direct link to be trained and to train other women. We're we're circulating the proposal, but it still hasn't gotten any reception by the representative of community action boards at a departmental level. But I think it is very important because we don't have a budget to go to all settlements. But if there are women trained there, it's easier to bring 3 women to train themselves, and that way they can reply it. Thank you. I'm going to put a camera for a moment to say goodbye. So Adriana, thank you very much, Christina, the rest of the women and people who are joining the event. Dr. Mauricio, as usual, there's a lot of information. In the previous conversations that we had, what we proposed was the possibility of having this space in order to start to get to know more one another. Dr. Mauricio is taking an idea now of the work of Ombudsman Office of Brave Women in Vista Hermosa, and you got to know firsthand all the experience of work in the territory that the legal office has been carrying out in Javeriana University, along with Dr. Mauricio. And we want from now on is to be able to meet ourselves again to see how we can start to adapt all those exercises of legal office to specific circumstances in the municipality of Vista Hermosa to see if within that exercise in the territory, if there is a possibility of strengthening the work and the actions that now are being carried out by the Ombudsman Office of Brave Women, that as you can see, Dr. Mauricio is a group of women. It's an initiative, has taken important initiatives for Vista Hermosa municipality, and it's an initiative that they have been carrying out from their own efforts. What we want to do right now is that the legal office also joins as Institute of Human Rights have been joining, and as the Dialogue Project has been joining, all this team and all this amount of resources, economic resources as well as human resources that are getting to the territory and specifically to Vista Hermosa to support the work experiences that the community has. That'll be pretty much everything from my end. I don't know if Dr. Mauricio has any additional comments. Otherwise, the commitment will be that once the event is finished, to be able to continue talking among ourselves and to generate a next agenda where we can meet again as soon as possible. Just for Zohara, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity that you're giving us. You dear ladies, motivate them so that you can continue in that beautiful work for your own good, for your families, for your communities. The worst a good person can do is to be indifferent, and you, with your work, you live in your comfort and indifference that really has made this country to grow a lot of bad things, a lot of inequality. So what helps here is love is service, made specific works, realities, and to be able to conquer a lot of things, a lot of these things that I'm talking about. We need access to justice and the exercise of rights. Also of duties, of course. That's why the legal pedagogy exists, not only to demand and to demand rights, but also to comply with my duties. To and under that sense, I think we can make a very good articulation, a very good alliance, a very good partnership. Our interest, I repeat, is only to be able to help you, to be able to help you. We don't want anything else but to help you. And if there is the interest and things are present and we're going together Professor Aguilar, again, thank you very much. And we'll be attentive to seeing one another in the next opportunity. See you soon. Dr. Mauricio, thank you, and your team of office. Thank you very much. A big hug. Thanks, Adriana, Christina, and women from the Ombudsman office. Brave women, a big hug, and we'll be in touch in the next days, okay?
Disculpa, Jairo, Cristina iba a hablar algo.
Excuse me, was Christina going to say something? Yes, go ahead, Christina.
Solamente darle las
No, I
gracias.
just wanted to thank you and a great hug for all of you, a big hug for all of you.
Muchísimas
Blessings for all of you. Thank you very much, and we'll be in touch. Have a good afternoon.
Gracias, profesor. Hasta pronto.
Muchas
Thanks,
gracias.
Professor. See you soon. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
Hasta luego, que se
Bye. Thank you.
Feliz y bendecida tarde para todos y todas.
Happy and blessed afternoon for all of you.
¿Están aquí?
Dios mío, es demasiado estrés.
Sentémonos a hablar de lo que pensamos, sentémonos a hablar de lo que queremos, sentémonos a hablar de una transformación, sentémonos a hablar para buscar solución. Sentémonos a hablar del territorio, sentémonos a hablar con la verdad, sentémonos a hablar con igualdad, para que juntos construyamos la paz. Sentémonos a hablar.
Sentémonos a hablar con el mismo objetivo y sacar adelante este pueblo que tanto ha sufrido. Ya no más violencia entre nosotros. Volvamos al diálogo y la alegría a todos estos rostros ya no oprimidos, que los han callado y de su territorio los han sacado. Hoy quieren ser escuchados en este diálogo social territorial, que trabajemos por la paz que tanto anhelamos como hermanos, donde también se aborden temas como la cultura, lo social, lo económico, los derechos humanos, la dignidad, y que sea algo real, para seguir generando confianza y esperanza en nuestra comunidad. Sentémonos a hablar, sin importar el estrato o la clase social, el color de piel o religión, o la condición. Busquemos la forma de la reconciliación para vivir en nuestro territorio mejor. Volvamos al diálogo que invita a la reflexión.
Volvamos al diálogo, por ti, por mí, por Buenaventura y Colombia, nuestro país. Volvamos al diálogo,
donde convergan nuestros hermanos sin miedo a morir. Oh sí,
volvamos al diálogo, donde las armas quedan atrás para construir la paz. Volvamos al diálogo.
es la hora, el momento. Quizás para mañana no tengamos tiempo.
Somos un pueblo inteligente, con saberes y con fuerza contundente. Buenaventura y el Pacífico presente. No nos sentamos a esperar, dialogamos al caminar, pues nuestra meta es avanzar y avanzar, buscando sanar las heridas del alma y el corazón. A través del diálogo, pues es la mejor sanación y transformación que genera la confianza y nace el perdón. En medio del dolor, buscando la paz y entre hermanos el amor.
Ya, la paz es ya, el diálogo a la solución. Sin armas, sin pasión, sin control ni manipulación. Dando la buena aventura, territorio pacífico que siempre ha sido ejemplo de lucha social, tierra pluénica y cultural. No queremos más guerras que nacen de la opulencia y discriminación. Solo buscamos el diálogo como solución, con justicia y respeto, dignificación, con integración y perdón. No queremos que vengan de afuera con su imposición. Queremos de aquí, sí, que le aporten al cambio y a la reconciliación.
Volvamos al diálogo.
Universidad de Sheffield, Universidad Javeriana y CINEP.
Volvamos al diálogo.
Con Valentina, JABI y Mr. Jackson, el cirujano.
Volvamos al diálogo.
Volvamos al diálogo, todos unidos, cogidos de las manos.
Volvamos al diálogo.
Casa Social, Cultural y Memoria. ¡Raza! fabre batuas que la bomba de bonfire. Esto es lo que hay. Volvamos al diálogo.
Juan Mario, ¿cómo estás?